Konoha East Uchiha is very cautious. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276 Choked. Lin, open the door. I forgot to bring my key. Kushina, who had almost realized that she was deceived by those meaningless messages, returned to her door. She found that she didn't bring her key, but she was not panicked at all. There was someone at her, Minato, home, so she started knocking on the door. There was no embarrassment of not bringing her key and locking herself out. Bang, bang, bang. After knocking on the door for a long time and seeing no good response, Kushina finally realized that something was wrong. She focused a little and punched the door to pieces, then went into the house to check carefully. As for the seal traps in the house that were triggered by her violent intrusion, she directly ignored them by relying on her own blood limit. Nothing unusual. Am I overthinking? The furnishings in the room were normal, and it didn't look like it had been violently invaded, but there was no sign of Lin. After searching the house from beginning to end, Kushina was a little confused after not finding anything unusual. Did Lin go out by herself? But Lin is a good and obedient girl, and she would not leave here without paying attention to her and Minato's warnings. We'll find out if we look for her. Since there was no trace of Lin in the house, it would be better to expand the search range. Kushina put her index and middle fingers together, formed a seal, and held them in front of her body, spreading her perception. In an instant, the entire Konoha was enveloped in her perception range, and at the same time, the edge of her perception was constantly expanding to the distance. No? Kushina sensed all the chakras of Konoha, but found nothing. Realizing that something really happened this time, her face became ugly. Still no. Expanding her perception to the limit, she still did not find Lin's chakra breath, but Kushina also gained something else. The traces of the battle here are still fresh. The battle happened not long ago. A hidden place near Minato's house. The ground, walls, and bushes here are in a mess. Needless to say, it has experienced a battle. Uzumaki Kushina was not a real fool. Seeing the situation around her, she knew that something had happened to Nohara Rin. But in the current situation, getting angry would be useless and would only make things worse. She turned into a red afterimage and disappeared on the spot. Who is it? The staff member guarding the reception room of the Hokage building only felt a red afterimage flashing past him. He was very alert and shouted immediately. However, all this seemed so futile, because this figure had already entered the office of the third Hokage. Without bothering to knock on the door or any other etiquette, Kushina directly smashed the other party's door into pieces. Kushina, facing the Ninetails Jinchuriki who had returned, the third Hokage knew it well, but he still pretended to look at the other party with an expression of confusion. Shimura Danzo, who witnessed all this, twitched the corners of his mouth, as if he wanted to express his joy, but his face had lost this function after a long period of frowning. He knew that what he said just now had worked, and it couldn't be better. Sandaime, something terrible has happened. Nohara Rin is missing. At this time, Uzumaki Kushina was a little confused because of Nohara Rin's disappearance. When she saw the Sandaime, she calmed down a little. I have sensed the surroundings of Konoha, and there is no trace of Rin at all. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw Shimura Danzo, who was also in the office. His whole expression changed, and even his eyebrows stood up, full of dangerous aura. Is it you? In the whole Konoha, you are the only one who can take Nohara Rin away silently. And her body seemed to be more sensitive than her consciousness. She directly swung her fist and smashed toward Shimura Danzo. Asshole! An angry curse was stuck in Danzo's throat. He just opened his mouth, and the fist wind that hit him blew all his words back into his stomach. Facing this sudden attack, how could Danzo hide? He never expected that the other party dared to make a scene in the conference room, and now he dared to attack him directly. This was simply intolerable, but the opponent's almost sneak attack came too suddenly. There was no way for an old man like him who had not been in battle for a long time to hide. Seeing that he was about to be hit in the face by Kushina, Shimura Danzo was really furious, but there was nothing he could do. Who made him face Kushina in an exposed state? Boom! A loud explosion came from the office of the Sandaime Hokage. The staff who had just arrived were stunned, and a familiar scene appeared in their minds. But it was a pity. As for Shimura Danzo, at the critical moment, he had to rely on the Sandaime Hokage to block him. Otherwise, he would probably have to stage the scene that happened in the conference room in the Hokage's office again. Uzumaki Kushina. A roar filled with anger and fear came from Danzo Shimura's mouth, shaking the roof tiles. Are you going to rebel? With this roar of shock and anger, Danzo, who was hiding behind the Sandaime Hokage, barked like a puppy with its master by its side. Looking at his posture, he seemed to want to counterattack. However, perhaps considering the huge difference in strength between the two sides, he still controlled his emotions. But his face was so cold that it was almost frozen. Cough, cough, cough. The Sandaime, who had just helped Danzo block the punch at the critical moment, let out a series of heart-wrenching coughs, attracting the attention of the other two people present. The strength of this woman. Seeing Sarutobi, who was known as the strongest Hokage, being injured like this by a punch from the other party, Danzo Shimura's eyes twitched, and at the same time, he couldn't help but have some thoughts in his mind. Hiruzen's body was getting worse day by day. Was his chance coming? As long as he continued to support Orochimaru in researching the cells of the Shodaime, would he one day? It's okay. Seeing Shimura Danzo and Kushina's gaze, the Sandaime Hokage waved his hands repeatedly. He had just received a punch from Kushina, and although the opponent had attacked with anger, it was a hasty punch, and he could still take it. It was just that he had just inhaled a puff of smoke into his lungs, and after receiving this punch, he was choked by the smoke, which was why he coughed so badly. Chapter 277 Breaking Free. Tell me, was it you who kidnapped Rin for the Three Tails? Seeing that the Sandaime Hokage was not seriously injured by her punch, Kushina relaxed and looked at Shimura Danzo, who was hiding behind the Sandaime. She still remembered that the other party had great thoughts about the Three Tails in Rin's body. Moreover, the other party also had the strength to kidnap Rin in Konoha village, and he was able to avoid the eyes and ears of Konoha. It was obviously you who didn't take good care of the Three Tails Jinchuriki, which led to his disappearance. This was obviously your dereliction of duty, but you blamed me instead. Seeing that the Sandaime helped him block the punch, Shimura Danzo already had a rough idea in his heart. The other party was still wary of the successor to the Hokage that he had chosen. Besides, at this time, you are still here to argue with me. You are totally ignorant. Come on, what are you all doing here? Why don't you quickly arrange people to find the trace of the Three Tails Jinchuriki? Seeing that the Anbu who had revealed their bodies due to Sarutobi's attack were all standing there without moving, Shimura Danzo directly bypassed his old partner and began to command the Anbu directly under the Hokage. However, what embarrassed him was that these people did not take his orders to heart at all, and still kept their previous posture. Go. It was not until Sarutobi Hiruzen spoke that these people left a team of people to protect the Hokage and disappeared in the office. Kushina, who was rebuked, looked at the old guy with suspicion, and was a little undecided for a while. She was also not sure whether Lin was sent by this guy to take her away. Although her perception ability could sense other people's malice, it was just that, Danzo, this guy, has always been full of malice when he sees me, not to mention that I just embarrassed this guy not long ago. Kushina, you should go with us. With your perception ability, plus the tracking of those Anbu, I believe you can find Lin soon. Later, I will send a few more Anbu teams to assist you. Just a few words. It reflects the Sandaime Hokage's understanding of the Nine Tails Jinchuriki in his village. And Uzumaki Kushina did not disappoint him, and disappeared directly behind the broken door, leaving behind a mess. In the barrier, although Obito opened the three Magatama angrily, he had no good way to face these elites of the root. He was just a Chunin before, and now even if he opened the Sharingan, he also had the White Zetsu attached to him. Dealing with these members of the root is still clumsy and dangerous. What's more troublesome is that the Nara clan member who just controlled No Harlan joined the battle, and not long after, He was controlled by the shadow imitation technique. Just when Obito was about to die, a terrified scream delayed his death. The Yamanaka clan member who controlled Nohara Rin and transferred the three-tailed beast did not see anything unusual when he first entered Nohara Rin's spiritual space. However, as the seal of the three-tailed beast was gradually released, an unexpected event occurred. In his spiritual vision, a huge monster suddenly appeared from the dark spiritual world. He was quietly watching the outsider who suddenly broke into Nohara Rin's spiritual world with one eye. Before he could react, a huge beast roar shook his spirit out of this space. On Nohara Rin, who was lying on the spot and had just restored her body control circle, scarlet bubbles began to slowly emerge. Even her face underwent some slight changes and began to transform into the form of a beast. It was the tailed beast outer garment unique to the Jinchuriki. Be careful, the three-tail broke free from our control. What happened? Shouldn't the three-tail fall into a deep sleep? When transferring the three-tail, it is an essential step to unlock the other party's seal, but they are not unprepared. According to the original plan, the three-tail will fall into a deep sleep directly and will not wake up until the tailed beast is transferred. However, because of a certain sun deer fox, the three-tail woke up very unexpectedly, and it was just when the seal was opened. Woke up in time. Kurama, what should we do now? Leave this little girl's body directly and go outside? Will your Jinchuriki kill you directly in this way? Inside Nohara Rin's body, on the head of the three-tail, there was a nine-tail with fiery red fur lying. It was just a head, so it looked a little small. Compared with the violent body, it looked a little cute. Whatever you want. This is really unlike your temper. I thought you would make a scene. In fact, according to the temper of the nine tails, of course it would just get out of it directly, and then cooperate with the main body in Kushina's body to help itself out of trouble. But after considering Kushina's perverted bloodline limit, it was a little bored. According to its estimation, even with the addition of the idiot Isabu, the two of them would not be able to get out of a few rounds before being sealed by Kushina. And there is also Animike's Minato. Whatever the idiot wants to do. Is this the power of Isabu? It's really violent. Nohara Rin, who had just escaped from control, felt the explosive power in her body and the burning sensation that kept coming from her body surface, and muttered to herself, "Thank you Isabu." Touching her lower abdomen, Nohara Rin said thank you to the three tails in her body. Then she exerted force on her body to break free of all the restraints that restricted her movements, and then, boom! As soon as she raised her foot, she came to Obito's side and punched the Nara clan member who had his back to her, causing serious injuries. Then she smiled brightly at the wounded Obito. "Obito, it's my turn to save you this time." After saying this, she grabbed Obito and ran out of the barrier. The stunned Obito was stunned and could only follow her stupidly. Step by step, Nohara Rin was very sober, thanks to the blessing of the inner Isabu. Although she now has a lot of chakra, her actual combat experience is too poor. She just took advantage of the unexpected advantage. If they really fought, she and Obito would not be the opponents of these people. Stop them. Don't let them leave the barrier. SEAL team, prepare the seal again. Since the Jinchuriki didn't go berserk, prepare a new seal immediately. As the on-site commander, Abure Murayama was still very calm. He was extremely surprised that Nohara Rin didn't go berserk directly. At the same time, he was relieved, but this was not the time to think about these things. If he let these two people out of the barrier, he would have to face the furious Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Just thinking about it gave him a chill. Chapter 278. Lying down. Isabu, are you just going to watch? Seeing his little brother, who was so unpromising that he actually lent his power to the other party, Jaiui was speechless. What else? If I go berserk, this little girl named Nohara Rin will die directly. Facing Jaiui's words, Isabu chose to lie down directly. After getting along with each other for the past few days, I think there is nothing wrong with sleeping in this little girl's body. Besides, I have seen the way that woman got angry that day. Add to that the Uzumaki clan's sealing technique. We have no chance if Jaiulama's body had not been sealed. The two of them could still try to struggle, but the current situation is that Jaiulama can't break the seal in the other party's body at all. Even if he adds himself, there is no hope. Anyway, He will be beaten up and then sealed again if he goes out, so why should he suffer this? Yukai, facing his little brother, Jiuai was really speechless. Although he agreed with what the other party said, such a negative attitude still made him very angry. I don't care about you anymore, be careful. After saying this, the mini nine tails slowly melted into the air and disappeared on Isabushi's head. At this time, Obito and Rin were surrounded by those root members. Obito, be careful. After telling Obito, Rin rushed towards the root ninjas who were chasing them. The other side had a lot of people, and before they ran far, people kept trying to intercept them. Although they were not her opponents, they still slowed down their escape speed, allowing the pursuers behind them to catch up. No hurry, Rin. Don't try to resist. We are doing this for the benefit of the village. As a disciple of Minato Namikaze, where is your will of fire? Also, the one next to you is Uchiha Obito, right? He is your companion who grew up with you. You have to think carefully. If you continue to resist, what will happen to him? Seeing that he had intercepted the other party and prevented them from breaking through the barrier, Aburame began to try to disintegrate the other party's will. The opponent's current state is somewhat tricky. The seal of the three-tail has been unlocked. Although it is unknown why the opponent did not go berserk directly, it is not appropriate to overstimulate the opponent at this time. This troublemaker who suddenly appeared is a good breakthrough. They did not recognize the opponent's current dress at the beginning, but Nohara Rin was in a hurry and directly exposed the opponent's identity. How could he not know? According to the intelligence he collected in advance, the opponent and Uchiha Obito grew up together, and the bond between the two sides is very deep. It is a good strategy to threaten the opponent with this kid. If the opponent can lose the will to resist through words, it would be the best. Even if the chance is small, it is good to delay the time so that they can gather more manpower. Judging from the situation shown by Nohara Rin, if it develops further, the manpower of their temporary base may not be able to control the opponent at all. Rin, don't listen to his nonsense. This guy doesn't expect us to surrender. He's just stalling for time. Let's find a way to break through this barrier. When we get outside, Sister Kushina will definitely come to save us. Obito's mind became very bright when he encountered something about Nohara Rin. Through the observation of the Sharingan, he quickly saw through the fundamental reason why the other party tried so hard to intercept the two of them in the barrier. He directly revealed the other party's plot. Well, this time I'll take the lead. You cooperate with me. Clenching her fist, Nohara Rin rushed directly towards the root members who intercepted her. This time, she wanted to be the one who protected her companions from the wind and rain. Be careful of the Jinchuriki. Don't fight with the other party in close combat. Damn, and this Uchiha. The other party's movements are very weird. With abundant chakra, every punch and kick of Rin has an extremely exaggerated power. Sometimes, just a big breath can generate a huge wind pressure, comparable to the general sea-level ninjutsu. In addition, there is an Uchiha Sharingan next to her to help her block the attacks from the flank. For a moment, these root ninjas had no way to do anything, and could only watch the figures of these two people approaching the edge of the barrier little by little. Damn it! The angry Aburame saw that his subordinates were useless and had no choice but to do it himself. But before taking action, he did not forget to tell his subordinates, "Pass the message to Danzo-sama." After saying this, he turned into a black cloud of insects and rushed towards Obito and Rin. After observing for so long, he also found some clues. Although Nohara Rin can use the power of the tailed beast to a certain extent, the opponent's body is obviously not very adapted to this kind of external chakra. Every time his subordinates were seriously injured, the opponent's body would tremble uncontrollably. Needless to say, this is the side effect of using the tailed beast chakra. As long as he dragged the opponent to exhaustion, they would no longer have the capital to break out. As for the other Uchiha kid, although he was a bit troublesome, he didn't take it seriously. At the same time, the opponent had another more fatal weakness. Every time Nohara Rin attacked, even if he hit the opponent, he only caused his companions to be seriously injured and lose their combat effectiveness. This made the attacks of his subordinates more unscrupulous, and also consumed more and more of Nohara Rin. The opponent really deserved to be the grandson of the third generation and the disciple of Minato Namikaze. Rin, Be careful. Seeing a dense cloud of insects rushing towards Nohara-rin, Obito quickly performed a great fireball technique to block the cloud of insects. At the same time, he did not forget to remind Nohara-rin on the side. At the same time, he also noticed that there were many small insects emitting chakra light, slowly approaching the two of them, not only in the air, but also on the ground. There were many such small insects, crawling slowly. He knew without thinking that these must be the tricks of the Aburame clan, and he quickly began to clean up these troublesome things. Sharingan? What a troublesome guy. His ninjutsu was discovered. Aburame Ryuma sighed. No wonder his boss was so afraid of these people. Chapter 279. Thinking more. Just when Obito and Rin were in a bitter battle, far away in the land of water, an old man was looking at the girl in front of him, revealing a trace of contemplation. You mean, the third Hokage hopes to send the new Three Tails Jinchuriki to our Mist Village. Let her serve as a bridge between our Mist Village and Konoha to strengthen the communication between the two sides. At the same time, as the price of returning the Three Tails, he also hopes that we can end this war with Konoha and sign a peace agreement? Yes, the other party sent the Yellow Flash to negotiate with us. In order to be able to contact you, he also arrested me and Manu in advance. After telling you his intention, he let us go. Facing the elder Yuanchai, Meixiang did not hide anything and reported everything that happened at that time to the Yuanchai in detail. Yellow Flash, listening to Meixiang's report, he did not expect that Minato Namikaze, who had only heard of it before, had such strength that he could instantly control this junior he was optimistic about. He originally thought that the other party's reputation was just an excuse that Inoki couldn't let go of his face, and the other party's proposal really surprised him. How could it be possible for a ninja from another village to serve as the Jinchuriki of his own village? Even if this person could serve as a bridge between the Mist Ninja and Konoha, it would be far from enough. However, it is not impossible to give it a try, as long as the Three Tails returns to the hands of the Mist Ninja again. As for the candidate for the Jinchuriki, he can change one at any time. This is also the best solution that Minato Namikaze can think of. But in this way, for Nohara-rin, her safety depends entirely on how the relationship between Konoha and the Mist Ninja is maintained. Once the two sides fall out, she will be the first victim. Of course, the reason why the Sandaime agreed is because doing so is good for Konoha. A Konoha ninja becomes the Jinchuriki of the Mist Ninja. No matter what, it is a good thing for Konoha. However, this matter depends on whether Minato Namikaze can do it. After he does it, how long he can maintain the relationship between Konoha and the Mist Ninja depends on his performance after becoming the Hokage. He doesn't care whether it succeeds or not. Has that Yellow Flash come to our Mist Ninja village now? After thinking for a while, the master continued to ask. Yes, the other party followed us directly to the Mist Ninja village, and hoped to meet you and the Sandaime, the Three Tails, and the peace issue between the two sides to talk. Originally, she did not agree to bring the other party directly to the village, but the other party's attitude was very sincere, and Yagura seemed to be willing to let her go. This prompted her to bring the other party back to the Mist Village. It was definitely not like what Manu said, that she was fascinated by the handsome guy from Konoha, so she did this. Although the other party is really handsome, it seems that the Sandaime Hokage is very sincere this time. He even sent his successor. Successor? Elder? Do you mean that that naive guy will be the future fourth Hokage? How is that possible? This guy's thinking is so naive. How could Konoha choose him to be Hokage? After a few days of contact, Meixiang had some understanding of Minato Namikaze, but this kind of person is not suitable to be a Kage at all. Naive? As an old man, the master had seen even more naive people. The first Hokage who created the ninja village system and distributed the tailed beasts to the major ninja villages was also an extremely naive person. Ming, you still don't understand. It would be impossible to become famous in the ninja world so quickly without the cooperation of Konoha village. The other party should be the successor of the Sandaime Hokage, that's true, but whether he can defeat other competitors depends on him. As an old man older than Sarutobi Hiruzen, he knew that a large part of the reason why every ninja who became famous in the ninja world was inseparable from the support of his own village. This person is the teacher of the new Jinchuriki. This time, on the one hand, he came here to explore the attitude of our mist ninja towards this war and pave the way for the signing of a peace agreement between the two sides. On the other hand, it is for the safety of my own disciples. I hope to contact you in advance to save the lives of my own disciples. Although she was a little surprised that a sunny and naive man could become the fourth Hokage, Taramimai still answered the master's question seriously. The teacher of Jinchuriki? Hearing this news, Uchiha was a little surprised. He didn't know whether this was a coincidence or the Sandaime Mizukage did it on purpose. How could the container of the three tails that the other party carefully selected be the disciple of Namikaze Minato? And the other party came to the mist village because of this matter. He had seen many conspiracies and tricks, so he had to think more. Did his own Mizukage do it on purpose and prepare to take this opportunity to start peace talks with Konoha, or did he prepare to take this opportunity to directly kill the yellow flash to hit Konoha's morale? He told what he was thinking to Mitarami, who was present, wanting to see what this junior whom he valued thought about this matter. After hearing what Uchiha said, Mitarami didn't come back to her senses for a long time. Just like what the elder Uchiha said, all this was too coincidental, and they couldn't help but think about it. Could this be a trap specially prepared by the Sandaime for the yellow flash? After thinking for a long time, Mitarami still felt that the Sandaime was more likely to kill the man than to sign a peace agreement with Konoha. I thought so too. Then are you still going to meet him? This man is too dangerous. I think you should be careful. Seeing that the elders also agreed with her idea, Mitarami frowned tightly. On the one hand, she didn't have the confidence to leave the other party in the mist village, and on the other hand, she felt a little regretful. It was really distressing for such a sunny and handsome man to become his enemy. There is no need to meet him with your real body. Don't you have a shadow clone? Also, I'm very curious whether Konoha will give birth to another leader with a personality like the first Hokage. It would be nice to meet him. Although he had never seen the god of ninjas in person, he had heard a lot about him from the first Mizukage and his guards. Chapter 280 Opening Eyes. Just when the Mist Ninja's master was about to use his shadow clone to meet Namikaze Minato in the Konoha village, Rin, we can almost break out. These remaining Enbu can't stop us too at all. Just when the number of enemies had been reduced to single digits, Uchiha Bito felt that it was almost time to break out, and if they continued to fight, both he and Rin would be a little exhausted, especially Rin, whose legs began to tremble from exhaustion. Yeah, go over there. Swinging a punch and forcing the enemy in front of him to retreat, Nohara Rin chose a direction with fewer enemies and rushed over there with a Bito. At this time, Abure Murayama simply didn't have more manpower to stop the two brats who wanted to break out. We finally escaped. As they got closer and closer to the edge of the barrier, Obito was very happy to see Nohara Rin fighting side by side with him. At least, Kakashi, that guy, had no experience of fighting against the enemy together with Rin. Just as Obito was looking at Nohara Rin's profile and thinking about something, the white Zetsu possessed him, made some unusual moves. Of course, all of this, including Obito, did not feel anything. I'm sorry Obito, I possessed you just for this moment. With the sigh of white Zetsu that no one heard, an abnormal wave emanated from white Zetsu's body, and the target was Nohara Rin, who was holding Obito's hand and about to run out of the barrier. Nohara Rin, who was holding Obito's hand and running in front, felt her heart twitch fiercely, and then a sharp pain spread to her brain. Cough, cough, cough. Nohara Rin, who had just approached the light curtain of the barrier and was about to cross the barrier with Obito, suddenly staggered, and then covered her mouth and nose with her free hand. And as she coughed, mouthfuls of bright red blood began to slowly flow along her small hand covering her mouth and nose, and her footsteps also slowly stopped. Rin, what's wrong with you? Because of the angle, Obito, who was one step behind, did not see Nohara Rin vomiting blood, but the other party's gradual stop made him aware of something unusual. Before he could notice anything, a huge force came from the hand held by Rin. He was thrown out of the barrier. It turned out that Nohara Rin just now felt that the passing of her life was unstoppable, and she mustered up the last bit of her strength to throw Obito out of the barrier. At least, let Obito escape. With the last belief, After throwing Obito out of the barrier, Nohara Rin lost her balance and fell to the ground. However, she had no regrets when she saw Obito's figure disappear in the light curtain of the barrier. Rin. Because of the lack of vision, Obito did not see Rin's specific situation, but at this time, Rin threw him out of the barrier, and he stopped and did not follow. Even if he was a real idiot, he knew that something was wrong. After a shrill cry, he disappeared into the barrier. What's going on? Why did the other party stop? Aburame, who was chasing after him with his subordinates, was a little confused when he saw Nohara Rin coughing up blood and falling to the ground. However, this did not prevent them from surrounding Nohara Rin, who fell to the ground. Did the Mist Ninja's puppet talisman take effect? It seems that the Mist Ninja has spies in the village. Otherwise they would not be able to control the puppet talisman so accurately. With just a simple observation, the experienced Aburame judged Rin's current situation, and it was extremely close to the truth. It was just because of his profession that the first thing he thought of was that this incident was caused by a spy from the Mist Ninja who discovered Nohara Rin, or that the puppet talisman had changed, so it triggered it and made Nohara Rin become what she is now. Rin. Before he could think more, a cry mixed with confusion, panic, and disbelief reappeared in the barrier. It was Obito, who had just been sent out of the barrier by Rin. This idiot. Nohara Rin, who was lying on the ground and coughing up blood, saw Obito, who had returned, and thought helplessly in her heart. At the same time, she was a little sad, wondering if these people would kill Obito. As this sadness rose, there was also a trace of warmth, which made her gradually cold body seem to have some warmth. It's that guy called Uchiha Obito. Kill him. Remember to leave his Sharingan. His mission this time was undoubtedly a failure. If he could leave the Sharingan in the other party's eyes, his boss's anger would probably be much less. His boss coveted the Sharingan, and he, as a subordinate, knew it very well. Impossible. This kind of thing. As soon as he entered the barrier, Obito found Rin's figure. The other party was now lying quietly on the ground, and blood mixed with internal organs was still gushing out of his mouth. It was obvious that he would not live long. I absolutely will not accept this kind of thing. The white zetsu that had been wrapped around Obito had now fallen apart, exposing his head, and at the same time, his madly spinning Sharingan. You guys deserve to die. Like a wounded beast, after a sharp wail, Obito rushed towards the Enbu surrounding Nohara Rin, and with his steps, the earth seemed to be able to feel his sadness, and continued to break apart with his steps. What's wrong with this guy? Looking at Obito, who was striding over, and at the same time, the spikes growing on the right half of his body, and the earth that was constantly breaking apart under his feet, an inexplicable chill filled him and his subordinates. Be careful. Secret technique. Mushitama. Without the slightest hesitation, his intuition was frantically sending him an alarm to escape, but turning around and running away directly was the stupidest thing to do. However, he was careful and did not attack Obito himself, but controlled his insects to rush towards Nohara Rin, who fell to the ground. Although the opponent was about to die, he had not yet died, so he could still be used. Kill you. Seeing this scene, Obito, who was already crazy, the speed of the Magatama in his eyes rotated more violently, and immediately connected together, forming a pattern that was like three sharp sickles, waiting to choose someone to devour. Chapter 281. Leaving a ruined battlefield. On the ground, corpses pierced by wood spikes could be seen. It was actually wood release. And just now, was that the Meixiang Sharingan? Feeling his life gradually slipping away, Aburame uttered a groan like mumbling, and then became silent. He had no regrets about dying at the hands of the famous wood release and the legendary Meixiang Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. He leaned down and held Rin's petite and fragile body in his arms. Rin. After killing everyone present at his fastest speed, Obito held Rin, whose body was gradually becoming cold, like a beast that had lost its cub, and kept wailing, "Obito, it's okay, don't be sad for me." Rin, who was still breathing her last breath, looked at Obito's madness and did not blame him at all. Instead, she began to comfort him. This idiot, if she were gone, I don't know how sad he would be. The madness he just showed made her a little scared. Rin, don't talk. I'll take you to find a medical ninja. Seeing Nohara Rin start talking, Obito seemed to have grabbed the last straw and said self-deceivingly how he hoped that all this was just a dream, or like the illusion of Tawashiro last time. The dream would be awakened, the illusion would be lifted, and everything would return to the original state. It's no use. My heart is already damaged. There's no way to save it. If it weren't for Icefi's chakra, I might have died. As a medical ninja, she knew her situation very well. Her heart was completely damaged, and even if the Six Paths Sage came, or Senior Tsunade came, they couldn't save her. Using his blood-stained hand, he stroked Rin's face. At this time, Obito was choking and couldn't speak, and could only utter a few simple syllables. Stupid, still so clumsy. As if it was a last breath, Nohara Rin's words became more and more fluent, and Obito, except for a simple could no longer make any sound. Don't be late again when I'm not watching you anymore. Yeah, get on good terms with Kakashi. Yeah, and remember to listen to the teacher. Yeah, Obito, don't hate the village. I don't blame them. The more she spoke, the smaller Nohara Rin's voice became, and even her body became colder, and Obito's heart slowly sank as Rin's body gradually became colder. And, Obito, thank you for your love all the time. After saying this, Nohara Rin's entire body was lifeless, and even the three-tailed beast in her body was the same as her. Obito, someone is coming. You can't stay in Konoha village anymore, but fortunately, I can turn into your appearance and disguise myself as a corpse, so that no one will notice that you've disappeared. It seemed that he was afraid that Obito would still have some concerns, or that Nohara Rin's words before her death made Obito stay in Konoha, and White Zetsu had already thought of how to end this matter for him. But Obito didn't react at all. He just held Nohara Rin's body in his arms, motionless. Obito, you killed so many Anbu this time. The third Hokage and Shimura Denzo will not let you go. Even if you don't think about yourself, you should think about Grandma. If you continue to stay in Konoha, it will not be a good thing for Grandma. When Grandma was mentioned, Obito finally moved. After thinking for a while, he felt that it was not convenient for Grandma to know what he was going to do. Let's go. After a while, Obito stood up and said something, and then waves of ripples began to spread in his right eye, and finally the whole person disappeared on the spot. After he left, another White Zetsu appeared on the spot, but in the blink of an eye, this White Zetsu turned into Obito's appearance, and even the chakra breath was exactly the same. However, there was a difference. At least there was no Sharingan in his eye sockets, leaving only two dark holes. Not only that, there are several other White Zetsu who destroyed the brains of the root members who were killed by Obito or saw Obito opening the Meixiang. No useful information was left. Even some secret codes left by Ryuma were eliminated by them. That was Obito's aura just now. This is passing through a barrier. Kushina was stunned by what she saw. This is wood release. Unexpectedly, she could see the disappearing wood release here, and why these wood releases killed so many Konoha ninjas. Obito, Rin. Before she could think more, two figures hugging each other attracted her attention. It was Obito and Nohara Rin. However, the auras of the two of them. Sorry, I'm late. Looking at the two people who died, Uzumaki Kushina looked at them with tears in her eyes, feeling extremely guilty. If she hadn't been deceived by rumors, things wouldn't have turned out like this. Just now, Kushina, who was searching Konoha like a headless fly with the Anbu, led people to search the outskirts of the village. Before she found any clues, Obito's breath flashed at the edge of her perception, causing her to change her search direction and rush over to Obito. However, everything was too late. Moreover, there were two other figures rushing over with her. Why are there traces of wood release here? Looking at the wooden spikes in the barrier, the Sandame's face was livid, and he looked at Shimura Denzo beside him with a bad face. Originally, he was just going to come over to see what Denzo was up to, and by the way, control the new Three Tails Jinchuriki, but he didn't expect it. The new Three Tails Jinchuriki didn't see it, but the traces of wood release all over the ground shocked him a little. Needless to say, these are inseparable from this guy Danzo. Danzo, who was also confused, What could he say at this time? He was also confused. Would release? Didn't he just start cooperating with Orochimaru? How could it appear here? Could it be a remnant of a previous experiment? Squinting his eyes, he carefully looked at the situation nearby, ignoring his subordinates who had died miserably. Danzo began to wonder if Sarutobi, or someone else, had hidden the existence of wood release, or if a wood release ninja had appeared among the 1,000 hands that had already disappeared among the crowd. Chapter 282 Follow-up. Shimura Danzo, before he could sort out the thoughts in his mind, a golden chain stabbed at his vitals. Whoosh! Danzo was a man who learned from his mistakes. As soon as he saw Kushina, he began to guard against her secretly. He reacted immediately when he was attacked by the opponent. He fully demonstrated his alertness as a veteran of the battlefield and dodged the attack immediately. Can you dodge? As soon as Kushina saw the body of Obure Ryuma, she knew that the guy on the opposite side was the one who did this. She could not control her temper and attacked Danzo directly without mercy. She had already thought about it. Even if the Sand Dame stopped her this time, she would not give up. However, something unexpected happened to her. This time, the Sand Dame did not intercept him. He was thinking, is his companion hiding some secrets that he didn't know? In the village, he was the only one who could perform wood release. It was just right to use Kushina's hand to knock on his increasingly restless white glove. Uzumaki Kushina, are you crazy? How could Danzo, an old guy, withstand Kushina's torment? He couldn't hold on after just a few rounds and was bound in the air by a golden chain. HMPH it's already this time, and you're still talking nonsense. You go to hell. Ignoring the other party's words, Kushina punched the other party in the face. Kushina. That's enough. Calm down. You have to think about Minato in the end. It was the Sandame Hokage who couldn't bear to watch it anymore and stopped the other party's atrocities. Danzo, can't die here, and even more can't die at Kushina's hands. I'm coming. In a dark basement. As the air rippled, the one-eyed Uchiha Obito appeared in front of Madara. His eyes were numb and his movements were stiff. He had not yet recovered from the blow he had just suffered. I know you will come back one day. When he decided to use this kid as the executor of his plan, this kid could not escape from his palm. No matter how he struggled, reality would tell him that only in the infinite moonlight reading could the world be truly happy. Relying on the nourishment of the sacred tree, all people would be immersed in happiness, without fighting, killing, or losers. I want to create a new world, a world with Rin. He also had some yearning for the world that Madara was talking about. He didn't know where he and Rin could meet again. So, Obito is dead? Facing the news brought by Minato Namikaze, Tawashiro was so shocked that he couldn't even hold the scroll in his hand. Is Obito really dead? If this guy is dead, Madara will have to find a task executor. In this case, the Uchiha, will still be in trouble. Where is the body? Still a little bit unbelievable, Tawashiro then began to ask about the condition of Obito's body. He knew that White Zetsu had the art of disguise, which could deceive all sensory abilities, including the Byakugan. His body was left at the scene, but the Sharingan disappeared. Speaking of this, Namikaze Minato felt a headache. Originally, he had a good conversation with the shadow clone of the master in the Mist Village. Both sides made a new explanation on the relationship between Konoha and the Mist Ninja, and also looked forward to the future. He and the other party had a detailed discussion on some details about Rin staying in the Mist Village, and they reached a preliminary agreement. Let Nohara Rin stay in Konoha for a while, and then go to the Mist Village depending on the relationship between the two sides. Although he knew that this might be a delaying tactic of the other party, he was confident that after he became Hokage, he could maintain the relationship between the two sides and ensure Rin's life. Although this would allow the other party to live in the Mist Village, it was the best way he could think of. I think the identity of the Hokage's disciple will still make those Mist Ninjas a little cautious, and they will not easily treat Rin as a dispensable container. But I didn't expect that at this time, the news of Rin and Obito's death would come. At the same time, there were also news that Kushina seriously injured Shimura Danzo, Obito's Sharingan disappeared, would release bloodline Genkai reappeared, etc., which shocked him greatly. After hastily ending the negotiations with the other party, Minato Namikaze's first stop after returning to the village was the camp in the Bear Country. By the way, he told Tawashiro this news. This is really troublesome. I wonder what the village says about this matter. Looking at Minato Namikaze, Tawashiro wanted to know how the village defined this matter. The village said that it was a spy of the Mist Ninja who wanted to release the three tails in the village, but was successfully stopped by Obito and the members of the Anbu. At the same time, the spy of the Mist Ninja, seeing that he had to do something, killed Rin and Obito, and stole the Sharingan from Obito. After a little hesitation, Minato told Tawashiro everything he knew, without hiding anything. TSK, spy of the Mist Ninja? What a perfect excuse. In this case, the family is suspected of dereliction of duty. This is really cunning. Tawashiro couldn't help but sigh that the third Hokage was still very skillful. With just one excuse, he silenced his family. Although the Konoha Guard force was mainly responsible for maintaining law and order in the village, it was more or less related to the spy incident. With this relationship, the Uchiha family had no way to hold on to the loss of the Sharingan. What was even more troublesome was that there was no evidence at the scene to prove that the Sharingan was taken away by someone in the village. However, Tawashiro estimated that the people in the family might be more concerned about the reappearance of wood released than the Sharingan. I see. Thank you for informing me, Brother Minato. Since the other party was kind enough to come and inform him of Obito's death, Tawashiro was still very happy. This proved that the other party at least took you to heart, instead of treating you as an insignificant Konoha ninja. I wonder how Senior Kushina is doing this time? Is everything okay? Probably. Nothing happened. As he spoke, Minato Namikaze also began to feel a little unconfident. After all, he had beaten up the top leaders of Konoha and had them hospitalized. How could there be no impact at all? Chapter 283 Entertainment Red Bin. Time passed slowly. 3 months later, since Nohara Rin died, the ninja world has returned to its original trajectory. The Mist Ninja continued to attack the Konoha camp, but the frequency and intensity had obviously decreased, which made the Konoha ninjas on the front line breathe a sigh of relief. Uchiha Tawashiro, watch out! A cry came from behind him. At the same time, there were also waves of hissing sounds from snakes. Squeak, squeak, ah! A not very obvious arc of electricity appeared from Tawashiro's body, shocking this poor attacker. Hongdu, even if you want to prove yourself in front of your teacher, you don't have to use me as a touchstone every time. Looking at the little girl who was half kneeling on the ground and shaking uncontrollably, Tawashiro said helplessly, since Hongdu came to this camp, I don't know why, she would run over and attack him from time to time. He was annoyed to no end. Humphrey, I will definitely defeat you and prove to teacher Orochimaru that I am the best. Tawashiro's attack was not very heavy, and the intensity of the electric current was not very high. After a while, Red Bin regained her ability to move. As soon as the little girl stood up, she rushed towards Tawashiro with a fierce momentum. Ever since Orochimaru praised Tawashiro's talent in front of her, she decided that she must defeat this guy. It's really a headache. Tawashiro supported his forehead. He really had no good way to deal with this energetic little girl. The other party was Orochimaru's disciple, and he couldn't be too heavy-handed with her. This caused this guy to become more and more unscrupulous. He had to think of a way to get rid of this little girl. How many times has this happened this month? What are you looking at? You don't have any dirty thoughts in your mind, do you? Seeing Tawashiro holding his chin with one hand and looking at her intently, Hongdu tightened her collar and looked at Tawashiro with a vigilant face. The way this guy just looked was just like the way Uncle Jiraiya usually looked when he passed by the women's bathhouse. Needless to say, it was clear that he was thinking about something dirty. TSK, you are not my type for a little bin bag who has not yet developed. You think too much. Asshole, pervert, are you blind? Being questioned about her capital, Hongdu was not as shy as other girls. Instead, she straightened her chest, which was beginning to take shape, with a proud look on her face. Don't try to stand up. No matter how hard you try, you can't change the fact that you are a 13-year-old girl. Although the future is promising, it is still far from my dream. Dong Shilang pouted and glanced at her helplessly, then moved his eyes away, and did not forget to add, for the standards of mature men like us, Your size is far from enough. Your dream? Hongdu was still very curious about the other party's dream, especially the other party's dream and the standard of mature men. Who is your dream? And what is the standard of maturity you mentioned? TSK, TSK, TSK. Hongdu, it seems that you have a good impression of mature men. He did not answer the other party's question directly. He also roughly knew some of the other party's thoughts. He squinted his eyes and began to look at the other party up and down. I don't know what you are talking about. Being looked up and down by the other party's eyes. The key is that the other party said what he was thinking. Hongdu's face rarely turned red, and he quickly denied it. But his attitude became unusually shy. TSK, isn't it just an Oedipus complex? Seeing this, Dongshiro winked at Hongdu. Don't talk nonsense. How could Hongdu bear it when the secret buried in her heart was spoken out by the other party, and her face was full of teasing? Like a cat whose tail was stepped on, her fur stood up, and she jumped 3 feet high and attacked Dongshiro. However, the blush on her face and the angry look, anyone would know that she was hit on the heart. Oh, isn't that so? I was going to tell you what the dream and standard of a mature man like me are. Facing this little wildcat with angry fur, Dongshiro was not panicked at all. Just a few words made Hongdu stop what she was doing. Holding her breath, she looked at Dongshiro and waited for him to speak. In fact, there was nothing strange about Hongdu's thoughts. As a war orphan, she had a strong teacher like Orochimaru. It was not strange for her to gradually turn from admiration to attachment and even love. But the other party's feelings are destined to end in vain. His teacher is not an ordinary person. He is a man who has mastered all the knowledge in the world and can break the shackles of human ethics. How could he play a love game with a little girl like her? As for the dream and standard of a mature man, of course it's Senior Tsunade. If you can reach this level one day, maybe you can give it a try. Tsunade Sama. Your dream is actually Lady Tsunade. After hearing Tawashiru's dream, Hongdu was stunned for a moment. At the same time, she looked down at her dumplings and felt a little discouraged for a moment. Although her own scale is not bad and her potential is not small, it is still a long way to go to reach the level of Lady Tsunade. Could it be that Orochimaru-sensei also likes someone like Tsunade-sama? Of course, no man would reject Tsunade-sama. If you have this kind of capacity, Orochimaru-senpai might also. Facing Tawashiru's deception, Anko gritted her teeth and said stubbornly, Orochimaru-sensei is not such a superficial person. Well, of course I admit it, but you can't deny that as Tsunade-sama's teammate, Orochimaru-senpai still has no partner. There must be reasons for this. Seeing that Anko still didn't believe it, Tawashiru continued to deceive. This little girl has been attacking him from time to time these days, making him very confused. If he doesn't have a good time, this is not his style. Could it be that Orochimaru-sensei also likes someone like Tsunade-senpai? Thinking of her teacher, who is always kind to women in the village, but has a different attitude towards Tsunade-senpai, Anko's mind is a little confused now. At the same time, she secretly made up her mind that she must make up for it after returning to the village. Hongdu, I have some secret recipes for massage. Do you need them? Go away. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284 Withdrawal. By the way, what on earth are you doing here today? Seeing that Hongdu was almost fooled by him, Dongshiro stopped teasing the little girl and stopped joking to ask her the purpose of coming here this time. Although the other party always makes trouble for him, under normal circumstances, he will not come to make trouble for him at this time. Here you go. This is what teacher Orochimaru asked me to give you. As she spoke, Hongdu threw a scroll to Dongshiro. Here it comes. Dongshiro took the scroll and ignored Hongdu's curiosity and walked towards his tent. Humphrey, sneaky. After complaining casually, Hongdu ignored Dongshiro and walked towards her teacher's tent with the worried look on her face. She wanted to verify whether what the other party said was right. Uncle Orochimaru is really reliable. In his tent, Dongshiro unfolded the scroll in his hand and looked at the ninjutsu recorded on it. and was quite satisfied. It seems that the way he opened it was wrong. It's pretty easy to get along with Uncle Orochimaru, as long as he gives enough benefits. He still has no shortage of ninjutsu. For example, this one in his hand. Since coming to this camp, Dong Shilang found that Orochimaru often used shadow clones to fish. Knowing this, he intentionally or unintentionally hunted some blood ninjas. When handing over, he directly skipped Konoha's logistics personnel and handed it over to Orochimaru's direct subordinates. After many times, the other party was also open-minded and would occasionally give Dong Shilang some ninjutsu that he was interested in. The two sides had a tacit understanding and didn't even have any communication. The transaction went on for several months. Dong Shilang and Orochimaru both got what they wanted. Shizui, are you sure you don't want to go back with us? In the front line camp, Dong Shilang looked at Uchiha Shizui opposite him and talked about the other party's stay. Well, I plan to stay here and use my own strength to protect Konoha. Konoha has not fallen to the point where it needs a child like you. Come back to the village with me. I heard that the 4th Hokage will soon take over. Why don't you go back with us to see the new Hokage of Konoha? This, after hearing what Tawashiro said, Shizui was obviously a little hesitant. Going back to see the new Hokage of Konoha seemed to be a good thing, but, sorry, Tawashiro Sr., I promised the 3rd Hokage that I would use my own hands to protect Konoha's companions. The war here is not over yet. I decided to stay here and use my own eyes to see what war is. This is what the senior taught me. Okay, but you have to be careful. Fighting here is not very beneficial to us. Uchiha. Unexpectedly, the other party actually used his words as a shield to persuade himself. Seeing the other party's firm attitude, he did not persuade him much. These people of his clansmen simply wouldn't listen to other people's persuasion, and he couldn't beat them up for this. After giving some instructions, he stood up and prepared to leave the camp. Since the Nohara Rin incident, the sand village of the Wind Country, under pressure from its own economic strength, finally accepted Konoha's war commission. Reluctantly, it went to war with the Mist Village of the Water Country. With this helper, Konoha can finally say that the Third Ninja World War is basically over. For nearly 7 or 8 years, it was first ambushed by the Sand Village and directly hit near Kikyo Mountain, and then fought with the Rock Village of the Earth Country and the Grass Country for 2 or 3 years. Finally, through the Battle of Kanabi, the other party was forced to sign a peace agreement. Although there are still 2 directions, the Cloud Village and the Mist Village, which have not been completely settled. One of them is fighting fiercely with the Rock Village, and the other is entangled by the Sand Village. For Konoha, it is really not cost-effective to deploy a large number of ninja corps in the Bear Country camp. A large number of people were transferred back to the village for rest. Not only Tawashiro, but also Orochimaru and many other Konoha ninjas were on the list of the evacuees. What Tawashiro didn't expect was that Shizui chose to stay here and continue to contribute to Konoha. At the same time, a debate began in the conference room of the Hokage building. No, I don't agree with Minato Namikaze being the 4th Hokage. He can't even appease a Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. How can he be qualified to be the Hokage? And he is too young. I propose that Orochimaru take over the position of the 3rd Hokage. He has more advantages than the young Minato Namikaze in terms of age and experience. After hearing the words of the 3rd Hokage, although he was prepared, Danzo Shimura still jumped out to object. Without any good excuses, he could only talk about Kushina's matter, especially the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Everyone here knows about the last time I was injured. I guess you don't want this to happen to you either. Age is not a disadvantage for the other party, but it may become an advantage for the other party. Shimura Danzo completely forgot the reason why he was seriously injured last time, and his exposure of his weakness this time caused everyone to discuss. No matter what, Danzo is also an elder, and being seriously injured by Kushina still made these elders hesitate. They have all seen the other party's outburst. If he did the same to them, they don't have Danzo's physique, and they probably would have gone to find the 6 Paths Sage themselves. The last time was also caused by something. Kushina was a little emotionally out of control because of Nohara Rin's matter, which is understandable. Besides, Namikaze Minato was not around at the time. If he was there, things would definitely not have developed to this point. As for Orochimaru, he adjusted his bamboo hat and the Sandaime seemed to be hesitant to speak. His favorite disciple is getting closer and closer to Danzo, and his temperament has changed recently. As a teacher, he is not sure what he is thinking. Orochimaru is not suitable to be the fourth Hokage. After thinking for a long time, the third Hokage just gave this conclusion and skipped Orochimaru. And not only him, but also many elders present agreed with the third Hokage's point of view. However, their ideas are obviously different from the third Hokage's. They think that it is not in their interests to have a strong fourth Hokage. Moreover, Orochimaru is not as easy to talk to as Minato Namikaze. It is estimated that the other party will not take their opinions seriously. Chapter 285 Recommended. Tawashiro, you've worked really hard this time in Uchiha Fugaku's mansion. Tawashiro was sitting on the guest seat, sitting at the same table with Fugaku and his wife, and the future 1v7 team. No, I just went to the battlefield of Bear Country for a tour. It's not hard at all. Facing Fugaku's politeness, Tawashiro just replied lightly. This time, the family arranged him to be under Orochimaru's command, obviously to hedge their bets, but he obviously didn't take his side very seriously. After throwing him over, he ignored him. Let's not talk about these for now. After discussing with the elders of the family, I decided to let Tawashiro take up an important position in the security force and become my assistant. I wonder if you have any ideas. After saying this, Fugaku deliberately looked at Tawashiro's expression changes, but to his disappointment, there was no emotion on his face. After returning to Konoha with Orochimaru this time, Tawashiro had already thought about his destination in advance. Dong Shilang said that he would never work as a police officer in the security force. He was a time traveler, and he was bothered by trivial matters with ordinary residents every day. Isn't this just looking for trouble? As for working as a mission ninja in the Sandaime, he felt that it was unnecessary. Since the other party didn't like him very much, there was no need for him to stick to him. Although Namikaze Minato was about to take office, a young man without a foundation still had a long way to go if he wanted to be in power. As for becoming Uchiha Fugaku's assistant, he looked at the 1-against-7 and thought about it. Forget it. This family is poisonous, and he really can't afford to provoke them. I don't know what's going on in the prison now. Konoha prison was under the control of the Uchiha clan at this time. What's more, this prison was inside the Uchiha's base. With the Uchiha sharing in sight, he could occasionally see some Konoha Zanbu personnel appearing in the Uchiha's base. The common excuse was to prevent any accidents from happening to the prisoners in the prison. As for who the prisoner is, it depends on one's own opinion. The prison? Hearing what Tawashiro said, Uchiha Fugaku was a little surprised. He didn't expect that the other party would choose such a simple job in the end. There is a shortage of manpower there now. Tawashiro, can you consider it again with the other party's talent and strength? It is really a waste of talent to just serve as a mere prison warden. He also planned to let this Uchiha genius take on a few difficult tasks so that he could perform well in front of the Hokage. He heard that the other party had a good relationship with Minato Namikaze, and he was thinking about making a good operation. In this way, the other party might be able to. Thank you for your concern. The prison is very good. There is less work, more money, and it is close to home. In addition, I have been fighting on the battlefield for so many years, and I am really tired of it. Although the prison warden is not an important position, he is at least a leader in Konoha's organization, and his salary and allowances are not small. Moreover, he can still have the final say in the prison, and he has more than 10 family members under him. Such a good thing is no better than dealing with some drunken hawkers. I know, I'll arrange it for you. Seeing that Dong Shilang had made up his mind, Uchiha Fugaku did not continue to persuade him. This is the advantage of having a backer, a prison warden. If he says you are you, thinking about my past life, I really dare not even think about such a good thing, but now it is just a matter of a word. As for why it is so easy, the Uchiha clan is now short of manpower everywhere, and they can't even fill the establishment of a security force. Ichi, go and get the black scroll on my desk. Yes, father. Fugaku took over his son and took out a half-person high brown scroll from the study. He handed it to Dong Shilang and said at the same time, "This is the information about the sealing technique that you were looking for last time. The elders who guard the shrine have sorted it out and are giving it to you this time, Mo." "That's great." Seeing this black scroll, Dong Shilang's face was full of joy. He needed this thing right now. Last time, he ran to the family's secret library to look for it but failed. He didn't expect that the other party would be so thoughtful. The information about the sealing technique is too complicated. He has been running around on the battlefield for many years and has no time to sort it out properly. In addition to some information he got from Minato Nimike's this time, Dong Shilang is still very satisfied. "Hey, Kakashi, you were very decadent." After coming out of Uchiha Fugaku's house, Dong Shilang handed the information about the sealing technique to the shadow clone who was practicing at home, and then he began to walk around Konoha. The end of the large-scale war has more or less restored some of the people in the village to their former atmosphere. Of course, this does not include a white-haired kid who lost his companions. "What kind of books are you reading?" "This kind of books is not suitable for a kid your age." Taking advantage of the other party's unpreparedness, he snatched the book How to Die from the other party's hand. Just a casual glance, Tawashiro began to complain. "Are you going to die? Give it back to me. This is none of your business." Seeing that it was Tawashiro, Kakashi let down his guard, but was dissatisfied with the other party's actions just now, and tried to snatch the book he bought. "Well, this book is not suitable for a kid of your age. Come here. I have a book here. It will definitely open your eyes." If he didn't want to, Kakashi had no way to take the negative reading material from his hand, but there is a saying that it is better to open than to block. Tawashiro took out a small booklet with an orange cover from his arms swiftly and stuffed it into Kakashi's hand. "Boy, this is the book a man should read. Don't say I don't take care of you." Tawashiro casually threw Kakashi's book into the trash can on the side of the road, and winked at Kakashi, revealing an expression that every man would understand. Kakashi was quite helpless when he saw Tawashiro throwing away his newly bought book like trash. He couldn't beat him, so he could only complain helplessly, "Mind your own business." "Well, don't say that. Compared to the book you bought yourself, I think this one in your hand is more suitable for you. It's definitely a masterpiece." Chapter 286 Prison Warden. Kakashi just glanced at the contents of the book, and like a frightened rabbit, he hurriedly stuffed the book into his ninja bag. At the same time, he looked around like a thief, as if he was afraid that someone would find the bad reading material in his hand. "How is it? Better than the one you just read, right?" Looking at the other party's cautious look, Dong Shiro blinked at him with a mean expression. "How can you let minors read this kind of thing casually?" "Oh, I didn't expect Kakashi to have such a sense of justice." "It's okay. If you don't like it, you can return it to me. You know, I spent a lot of effort to buy this book." Seeing that the decadent atmosphere on this guy seemed to have dissipated a little, Dong Shiro was relieved. The reason why he gave this guy Jiraiya's new intimate paradise was that he was still immersed in the sadness of losing his companions. Dong Shiro couldn't bear it, so he let this young man open his eyes. HMPH. No need to defeat the enemy. We must first collect enough intelligence. Instead of returning the intimate paradise to Tawashiro, Kakashi started to talk nonsense righteously. Ha, that's right, young people, just reading some meaningless books. It's really a waste of youth. How good it is. Seeing that the other party was so sensible, Tawashiro did not talk to him anymore, but waved his hand and said goodbye to the future Konoha technician. Before leaving, he did not forget to tease, "Remember to thank me well." Uchiha Station, Konoha Prison Warden's office. The newly appointed Uchiha Tawashiro is getting to know his territory. This prison located in his family station is not liked by any of the clan members. Everyone thinks that this is just a means for the second-generation Hokage to humiliate the Uchiha family, and they are quite repulsive. If there is nothing, they will not come to this place at all. There are 1,027 prisoners in total, including 213 serious criminals, and the rest are ordinary criminals who are detained for varying periods of time. Among them, there are some people sent by the security forces who are drinking and making trouble, or fighting. According to the security forces handling plan, They only need to be locked up for 1 or 2 weeks. A Uchiha clan member who is just 20 years old, holding a document of Konoha prison in his hand, is reporting the specific situation in the prison to Toshiro. His voice is crisp and clear. She is wearing a navy blue high-collared jacket in the color of Uchiha, with long hair draped over her shoulders, a well-proportioned figure, and a very beautiful appearance. However, the sadness that flashed across her face made her whole person look melancholy. Coupled with her experience, this also made her look even more pitiful. She is Toshiro's new subordinate, Uchiha. Her husband died in this war, leaving her with only a child who is not yet 1 year old. And what's that smell? As the other party approached, a strong smell filled Dong Shilang's nose, making him unable to help but sniff it gently. "Excuse me." A gentle apology came into his ears. Uchiha's face turned red. Looking at Dong Shilang next to him, he was embarrassed. It's me who was rude." As if realizing something, Dong Shilang did not continue to dwell on this topic, and directly asked, "Among these people, how many are ninjas with chakra?" "There are less than 200 people, to be precise, 183 people." Seeing that Dong Shilang did not dwell on this issue, Uchiha was also relieved. If the other party kept asking, it would be embarrassing. However, looking at Dong Shilang next to him with a serious face, Uchiha realized that the other party already knew what the smell was just now. At this time, his face became even redder, and even the neck that was exposed changed color. "Only 183 people? Do you know where they came from?" Without caring about the changes in his subordinates, Dong Shilang continued to ask Uchiha without changing his expression. 55 of them were death row prisoners who were captured by the security forces after accidentally killing someone. There are also 28 spies from other villages who were also captured by the security forces, and then interrogated by the interrogation department and put back here. The remaining ninjas also have some other faults, but they are not so serious. They are just detained for a few months to a few years. Without flipping through the information in his hand, Uchiha reported these data very familiarly. Without asking, he knew that the other party knew these data very well. "It seems that she knows this place very well." "You are too flattering." As an ordinary Uchiha, Chi, whose strength is only at the level of Chunin, keeps a good distance between herself and Dong Shilang, and at the same time inadvertently observes her boss. It is said that the other party is a powerful ninja who has opened the 3 Magatama, but no one knows why he came to the prison. Everything remains the same for now. Flipping through the documents in his hand, Dong Shilang waved his hand to let Uchiha leave. "Do you need me to gather those clan members who are not on duty?" Before leaving, Uchiha asked the new boss. "No, they just got off the night shift not long ago. Don't disturb them to rest, just notify them when you change shifts." "Yes." After saying that, the other party left Dong Shilang's office. After the other party left, Dong Shilang began to think about the prison. Since the outbreak of the war, a large number of young and middle-aged people in the family have been mobilized to the front battlefield, and in this prison, only the old, weak and disabled are left. For example, the woman named Uchiha just now, obviously still in the breastfeeding period, but because of her husband's sacrifice, she had to shoulder the burden of the family. She handed her young children to the better clan members to take care of them, and came to this prison to work to prepare for the future of her children. She is a mother with a tough character. This is a common situation in this prison. Losing an arm, or having impaired vision or hearing, this kind of situation can be said to be everywhere among these clansmen. This is also considered to be one of the few benefits that the Uchiha clan can obtain for their clansmen. Of course, the same is true for those who can serve as civilians in the security forces, but the family obviously has different requirements for serving in the security forces. Not all clansmen can receive a pension from the security forces. Chapter 287 Watergate Succession. This morning, the mist that enveloped Konoha village had lifted. The sun shone through the golden clouds, casting its light down, making the 3 dull and solemn gray rock faces bright and vivid. The treetops, roofs, chimneys and roads in the distant village seemed to be covered with a layer of orange clothes, making the whole village covered with a warm and pleasant smell. "I always thought that you were the successor of the Will of Fire, Minato," From today on, the future of Konoha and the future of the ninja world will be entrusted to you. The third Hokage handed the bamboo hat in his hand to Minato Namikaze in front of him, and he felt that his choice was not wrong. Minato Namikaze was the best candidate in his heart to succeed the fourth Hokage. I am willing to sacrifice my life for this. I will definitely not let down the third generation master and everyone's trust. Taking the bamboo hat representing the identity of Hokage from the third generation master, Minato Namikaze looked solemn and humble, and said his oath with a serious face. As for Toshiro, he was mixed in the team of Jonin, watching the other party put the Hokage hat on his head and waved at the ninjas under the Hokage building, especially after the other party turned around. The symbol of the fourth Hokage behind him made Toshiro's mouth twitch. Such an embarrassing thing. Only Minato could do it, showing his title directly behind himself. What's the difference between this and wearing the word idiot on his head? Will it really not be socially dead if he goes out like this? But these are not what he cares about now. At this point in time, the other party probably has no real power at all, and can only rely on his disciple Kakashi and the slowly cultivated shadow guards to exert their influence little by little. There is always an emperor watching his every move above his head. Just thinking about this feeling, Toshiro knows that the other party is not having a good time now. It's better to wait until Minato Namikaze really survives the Nine Tails dilemma with his own strength. If he intervenes in this matter, he doesn't know if he can play any role. While thinking about these things, Toshiro walked towards his current nest, Konoha prison. "Chi, how is the place I asked you to prepare?" As they walked, Toshiro began to ask Akayachi, who was also attending the inauguration ceremony of Minato Namikaze. "We have cleared out a relatively hidden empty room in the prison, but I don't know what the warden plans to do with it." Akayachi, who was following Toshiro, looked at her boss curiously. She didn't know what the new warden wanted her to do with the empty room. However, as a subordinate, she still executed his orders very well. "Some instruments will arrive in the next few days, and someone will come to install them. Please take care of them." What else can he do? With the cell tissue of white Zetsu in his hand, Toshiro has to do recently, which is to turn these things into part of his own strength. However, he was also a little hesitant. Whether he should transplant the other party's cells is really a problem. Although from the original work, Obito, who transplanted the cells of white Zetsu, did not grow the face of the first generation, but everything still needs to be seen. If it still grows out, when he is trembling with others, they will point at the extra face on his body and ask who it is. It is a bit embarrassing to think about it. Should I get along well with this guy Orochimaru? He is not really good at biological experiments. Before his rebirth, he was a coder and was good at typing codes. But for biological experiments, even if he has been strengthening his studies in this area throughout his life, he still lacks confidence. But it doesn't matter if he is not good at it. Isn't there Orochimaru, the scientific research leader? It's just that the other party will defect to Konoha in a few years, which makes him hesitate. If he gets too involved with the other party, he will probably be in trouble again, and his own Meixiang. It's about time to start preparing. In his opinion, he is just the right age now. If he opens his eyes now, he should not be burdened by the Meixiang like Akayachi, who vomited blood and died. Although the original work did not specifically say what caused the other party to fall ill, after so many years of using the Sharingan, Toshiro almost knew the specific cause of the disease. Take Kakashi for example. As an elite Jonin, his physical fitness is definitely not bad. After all, he has been exercising since he was a child and also knows the 8 gates. But every time he uses Obito's Kami, he ends up in the hospital and has to lie in bed for a week or two. On the one hand, it is because he does not have the blood of the Uchiha clan and cannot adapt to Obito's eye. On the other hand, it is because the pressure of this eye is too harsh, which makes an elite Jonin unable to bear it. As a member of the Uchiha clan, although he has an advantage in blood, he is facing the pressure of a pair of eyes. If he does not have a good body, he probably can't bear it. For example, Ichi opened his Meixiang at the age of 13, and when he was about 22 years old, his body was no longer good. On the one hand, he had his own reasons, but the pressure of the Meixiang was still inevitable. "By the way, Chi, I heard that the wife of the clan leader is pregnant?" As they were walking, Toshiro asked such a strange question, which made the unprepared other party stunned for a while. "Yes, I just don't know why the warden pays so much attention to such things." Looking at her boss with a strange look, Uchiha unconsciously distanced herself from him, looking at his back with a wary face. At the same time, she secretly muttered, "Does her new boss have any special hobbies? It's better for her to stay away from him." "Nothing, I just thought of something. Konoha can be said to have a baby boom recently. Not only Uchiha Mikoto, but also Uchiha Mika and his aunt have given birth to children one after another." "That's right, Uchiha Mika has given birth to a boy, and her uncle also has a daughter. If you calculate the time, it is exactly the same as the future Neji and Tenten. As for Uzumaki Kushina, since she is already pregnant, it would be inappropriate for him to continue asking for advice. Otherwise, if the Nine Tails rebellion really breaks out, he would be the one with the greatest suspicion." Chapter 288 Experiment. Time passed slowly, and several months passed. Fugaku's second child was born. Without any surprise, he was named Uchiha Sasuke. Toshiro would never believe that Fugaku gave his child such a name without any intention to show his goodwill to the third Hokage. However, the development of the situation is often not as expected. In a relatively hidden room in Konoha prison. "Ah, Maki, don't leave me. I will live with you forever." After a roar, there was a murmur. A middle-aged man with his upper body naked was lying on a small bed that could only accommodate an adult. At this time, his hands and feet were tightly bound by the straps on the bed, and his whole body, especially his head, was connected to large and small wires. And these new wires were connected to another monitor. This is not the end. Dong Shilang's figure was standing at his head, with his hands on his head, carefully sensing something. The other person's head was not directly exposed to the air, but was covered by a layer of white cloth covered with twisted and incomprehensible black spells. The effect of the drug tested this time is not very good. Also, using chakra to stimulate the brain to control the amplitude of emotional fluctuations is effective, but the side effects are a bit big. The parts of the human brain that are mainly responsible for controlling emotions include the cerebral cortex, amygdala, hippocampus and hypothalamus. The cerebral cortex, especially the prefrontal lobe and temporal lobe, are responsible for processing emotional information. The prefrontal lobe can also regulate emotional reactions and self-regulate emotions. There is also the amygdala, located deep in the brain, which is the center of our emotional reactions, especially fear and anger. This is an ancient brain structure that plays a key role in our emotional reactions. Then there is the hippocampus, which is an important part of the brain and is mainly responsible for the storage of memory. Together with the amygdala, it can connect emotions and memories. Then the hypothalamus, which controls the body's autonomic nervous system, can adjust the body's physiological reactions to adapt to changes in emotions, such as accelerated heartbeat, sweating, etc. The above parts jointly participate in the generation and regulation of emotions. Emotional regulation is a complex process that involves the interaction of multiple parts of the brain and neural pathways, and Toshiro has transformed himself into a brain science expert during this period of time, trying to use chakra, drugs, illusions and other means to continuously amplify the emotional fluctuations of the test subjects. Especially when people are sad, some special substances secreted by the brain are the directions he pays special attention to. As for the materials for the experiment, they are naturally the prisoners in Konoha prison, especially those on death row, who are the focus of Toshiro's attention. The method of the experiment is also very simple. First, use the yearning to torture the other party to find out the happiest and most painful times, and then use the sealing technique to seal the other party's memory. Use illusions to control the other party, constantly experience these happy or sad things, and use drugs and chakra to stimulate their brains. The method of observation is also very simple. On the one hand, observe the other party's brain waves, and on the other hand, count the secretions of various secretions in the other party's brain. In this way, we can judge the effects of our own chakra stimulation or drugs. Of course, This is not enough. It is best to observe whether the other party's mental state will have any special changes after experiencing these. These are all things that Dong Shilang started to try after he took office as the warden of Konoha prison. However, judging from the results, they are not very ideal. Either the drug or chakra stimulation effect is not great, and there is no obvious effect, or the stimulation is too much, causing some irreversible sequelae to these test personnel. For example, mental disorder, directly becoming a madman, or the amplitude of emotional fluctuations is relatively large, because some trivial things make uncontrollable tears or laughter. Another is endocrine disorders. It makes Dong Shilang very worried. With a big sigh of relief, Dong Shilang stepped out of his laboratory and said to Uchiha who was guarding the gate, "Chi, this person is handed over to you. Let him spend the last few days before he is executed." Yes, looking at the situation in the laboratory, Uchiha was no longer surprised. She calmly sent Dong Shilang's experimental materials to the corresponding cells. At the beginning, she was a little surprised and even went to Uchiha Fugaku to report the situation. But after the other party had a detailed discussion with Dong Shilang, seeing that he had not caused any deaths, he did not care about these things. After all, they were just some death row prisoners, and Dong Shilang was still studying illusions in the name of the prison warden. This is the transfer information of the prisoners sent by the Anbu, and you need to sign it. After sending the unfortunate prisoner to the cell, Uchiha found Dong Shilang who was resting with his eyes closed in the office. She handed him a document. "Oh, prisoner retrial." Flipping through the document casually, Toshiro did not sign immediately, but looked at the other party in front of the office. "Chi, how many times this month has the Anbu taken prisoners away from us for retrial?" "The 6th time." "The 6th time?" Touching his chin, Toshiro almost knew the final fate of these prisoners, but in order to confirm his guess, he still asked, "What did these prisoners who were brought in by the Anbu for retrial commit, and did they return to our prison in the end?" Facing Toshiro's questions, Uchiha did not hesitate at all, fully demonstrating her understanding of the prison and the prisoners. Most of them are prisoners with heavy sentences, usually for serious crimes like murder and robbery. After being interrogated by the Anbu, no one has returned to prison. Some of the interrogated prisoners are spies in prison. Because of their sensitive identities, we didn't ask too many questions. How many people did they interrogate in total? In 6 times. In this case, Toshiro is almost certain that these people should have been used as experimental materials by Orochimaru and consumed. A total of 80 people, and all of them are prisoners with chakra. Uchiha seemed to have noticed something unusual. After reporting the data, she added another sentence. Then she quietly waited for the next step. Chapter 289 Consumption. This group of people is really unscrupulous. Dong Shilang had to say that in less than a month, the other party had consumed the experimental materials of 80 people, which was really a large number. "No, we still have to stop it. If this continues, my prison will be empty. In this case, how can my experiment continue? Are the other party's procedures complete? Have you obtained the approval of the Hokage?" The other party's procedures are complete, but they have the signature of the Sandaime Hokage. "That's good. Just tell the other party that the Sandaime has abdicated. If you want to continue to interrogate the prisoners, we need the signature of the 4th Hokage." Since the Sandaime Hokage has abdicated, he still uses the other party's signature to fool himself. Does he really think that he, the warden, is not an official? In addition, it is hard to say whether these signatures are true or false. "Yes, I'll take my leave." After getting Dong Shilang's reply, Uchiha did not stay any longer, and walked out directly to send away those Anbu people. It's really good to be a leader. Sitting behind the desk, quietly watching the other person swaying back, Dong Shilang couldn't help but sigh that having a capable secretary can really make people feel a lot more relaxed. Especially having a beautiful secretary, it's even more pleasing to the eye. But before he could enjoy it for long, an Anbu wearing a tiger mask broke into Dong Shilang's office silently. Uchiha Dong Shilang Dan. As soon as this Anbu came in, it seemed that he wanted to move Danzo out to suppress Dong Shilang. but Dong Shilang was quite good at dealing with such things. "Who told you to come in? Go out. Remember to knock before you come in." Dong Shilang interrupted the other person's words directly and gave him a look, which made this Anbu unable to control his movements at all. Not only did he step out of the door stiffly, but he also helped Dong Shilang close the open door. "Asshole." Damn, Uchiha standing outside the door. Although his body has regained control, this Anbu did not really knock on the door as Tawashiro said. Instead, he disappeared silently outside Tawashiro's office door. If he really knocked on the door as Tawashiro said, he would be a real idiot. The other party's attitude was so bad, and it was obvious that they did not buy into their boss's account. There was no point in doing it. Not long after the ninja dressed as Anbu left, in a dark basement in a dense forest in the back mountain of Konoha, an old figure was pacing slowly and said to a busy figure beside a laboratory table, "Damn, this group of Uchiha, they are increasingly looking down on me. They still say that the signature of the third Hokage is outdated. It's really getting more and more arrogant, especially the two words outdated." He felt that the other party was laughing at him. "Orochimaru, you're consuming too fast. These chakra materials are hard to find. Hey, if you want to get results quickly, this is the easiest shortcut." Without looking up, Orochimaru, who was busy dissecting the corpse on the experimental table, just replied indifferently and ignored it. Compared to Tawashiro's case, which only made people crazy and develop some mental illnesses, the fate of the prisoners here can be regarded as miserable. Not to mention the bloody corpse on the experimental table, just the glass jars filled with nutrient solution on the shelf behind Orochimaru, with the white body tissues soaked in them. It can be inferred that these people have suffered such miserable treatment. "Orochimaru, you should know that without my support, you can't conduct experiments so safely. Also, those people in the Uchiha prison are the easiest way for us to obtain materials. You don't want your experiment to be interrupted, do you? Compared to those corpses or wandering ninjas with missing limbs, I think you don't want to give up those materials in the prison." As a person who has been wandering in the dark for many years, Shimura Danzo knows how to make others do things according to his own ideas. Well, this is a big problem. After saying this, Orochimaru continued to work on the corpse in front of him. Seeing the other party's behavior, Shimura Danzo was really angry. If he hadn't expected the other party to study something from the cell tissue of the first-generation Hokage, he would not pay attention to this venomous snake that made him feel more and more uneasy. Since the last time he saw wood release, Shimura Danzo can be said to have put all his enthusiasm into the experimental development of wood release. But what about Orochimaru, this bastard? He was actually obsessed with studying the art of immortality and invested a lot of money in this area, which made him very angry. Although he was also very envious of immortality, the most important thing now was the research on wood release. As long as he had such a thing, he would be more confident when facing the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Shimura Danzo left with his subordinates, looked at his newly promoted subordinates, and began to ask about other things. "It's been so long. Is there still no news about wood release? Your subordinates are incompetent and have not found any clues so far. What about the third Hokage? Are you sure that wood release is not the power of the third Hokage?" Hearing this answer, Danzo was dissatisfied, but he didn't say much. Compared with Ryuma, these people were still a lot worse. It can be confirmed that the third Hokage does not have a ninja with wood release Kekkai Genkai. All of a sudden, Shimura Danzo was really confused about the situation. He didn't have it, and neither did the Sandaime. So who else in Konoha could perform wood release? Is there any unusual movement on Tsunade's side? Tsunade-sama is still traveling around the world as usual, and at the same time, gambling everywhere and hiding from debt. When talking about Tsunade, this rude member of Konoha hesitated a little, not knowing how to describe his feelings at the moment. He never thought that the famous Tsunade-sama was actually a gambler, which really shattered his worldview. Humphrey. These disciples of Sarutobi are really worse than one another. Think about Orochimaru in the basement, the wandering Jiraiya, and Tsunade who suffers from hemophobia. Even Danzo couldn't help but complain. Chapter 290 Evening. In the evening of the 48th year of Konoha, it has been nearly a year since Minato Namikaze became the Hokage. Looking at the drifting clouds in the sky, Toshiro knew. Today is a special day. If I remember correctly, October 10th is the birthday of the future Prince Naruto. And Obito, who is already dead, will attack Uzumaki Kushina, who is giving birth today if nothing unexpected happens. I just don't know if the fate of the fourth generation couple will change with my reminder. It turned out that just a week ago, Toshiro controlled the prisoner in the prison and asked him to use the shadow clone technique to split a clone. He controlled this clone and performed the transformation technique to become an ordinary cat and sent a letter to Kushina, who was about to give birth. In the letter, it was mentioned that the information about her delivery date had been exposed, and an enemy with would-release bloodline Genkai and mastered space-time ninjutsu was eyeing the Nine Tails. I just don't know what preparations Minato Namikaze and Kushina will make after receiving this news. However, judging from the situation today, Konoha does not seem to have any special preparations. Everyone was still working or shopping, but there were some changes. Master Warden, today we received a message from the security force headquarters, requiring all family members to strengthen their vigilance and guard against enemy invasion. You are really acting in a way that is not in accordance with the rules. Kaiichi, the secretary, looked at her boss, frowned her pretty eyebrows, and looked helpless. Don't make such a fuss. How could a clean office like ours be attacked by the enemy? Even if there really is an enemy, the other party's target would not be our Konoha prison. Even if it is the security force headquarters, it is a better target than us. Seeing that his subordinates were still following him relentlessly, Toshiro felt quite shameless. Didn't I put a shadow clone in the office? If you have any problems, just go to him directly. Since he started doing those experiments related to the kaleidoscope, Toshiro has been using the shadow clone to work. With such a good skill of slacking off, how could he not use it? But, this time the situation is special. If something unexpected happens, don't worry. Even if there is something special, I believe Chi can handle it properly. As he spoke, Toshiro looked at his beautiful subordinate with a fixed gaze. At this time, Toshiro, just from the appearance, did not look like a 16-year-old boy at all. This is a young man, tall and well-proportioned, with a high nose bridge, a pair of slender sword eyebrows, sharp and straight, and a pair of bright eyes under the sword eyebrows, shining like stars. Being stared at by these eyes, Kaiichi felt that her heart, which had been silent for a long time, seemed to be starting to sprout again. The pretty young widow with delicate eyebrows and creamy skin blushed when she saw it, and dared not look at him. Haha, Chi, don't always look cold, so that people look cold and depressed. It's better to look like this now. As he spoke, Toshiro waved his hand and went in the direction of Konoha. Hey, isn't this Ebisu and Genma? Why are you just looking outside and not going in? To the entrance of a Konoha street, Toshiro walked slowly and greeted the figure who was looking at the door and performing the transformation technique. Ah, it's Toshiro Sr. When Toshiro called out their names, the two guys were like being discovered while peeping, and they were extremely nervous. That Ebisu was still a bit shy, but Shiranui Genma, the guard of the fourth Hokage, seemed much more open. We were just strolling around the village after dinner and took a casual glance. After saying that, he seemed to be worried that Toshiro would not believe him, and added seriously, this kind of place, which runs counter to the 3 prohibitions of ninjas, is not a place for people of our age. Yes, we were just strolling around and passed by here accidentally. If there is nothing special, we will leave first. Genma was fine when Toshiro caught him looking around in such a place, but Ebisu, the sultry boy wearing small sunglasses, was a little embarrassed. He pulled Genma's arm and prepared to leave. Since we are here, let me take you to broaden your horizons. As an old driver, how could Toshiro not see the eager and shy expressions of these two guys? Without further ado, he took a step forward, put his hands around their necks, and led them into the brightly lit street. At the entrance of the street, Kabukicho Ikubangai, a few conspicuous characters were seen, emitting bright light, Senior. Senior, this is really not a place for ninjas of our age. You should go shopping by yourself. Forced into the adult world by Toshiro, the two guys looked around, and because of Toshiro's strange behavior, the passers-by who cast their eyes on them were all panicked. Their feet were fixed on the spot, not daring to take their own steps, and they were still making the last struggle. If Toshiro hadn't dragged them, the two guys would have fled the scene immediately. The high lanterns around them, and the figures standing under the lanterns waving at them, made their hearts beat fast and their blood boiled. Don't worry, this is a street for eating, drinking and having fun. I'm just taking you to a hot spring and letting you try a massage at most. Don't be so nervous. Also, you two, do you want everyone in Konoha to know that you are here? Why don't you make your expressions and movements more natural? You will only attract more attention if you look like this now. As he spoke, Dong Shilang loosened his hands around their necks and walked calmly on the street. At the same time, he did not forget to look at the welcoming ladies dressed in different styles around him. Let's go. This is the one. Holding the shoulders of the two guys, Dong Shilang took the lead and walked into a store that looked more fashionable. The two guys, seeing that things were not as they imagined, breathed a sigh of relief, but they were also a little eager to try massage and the like. They only heard the name, but not the reality. Taking this opportunity, it would be nice to go in and feel it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291 Massage. This is a two-story Japanese-style building. Although the building style is old-fashioned, the decoration is very fashionable. As soon as you enter the door, you can see some young ladies dressed in different clothes sitting in the lobby, just like goods waiting to be picked, waiting for their guests tonight. Welcome to Teiwan Zindi. Before Dong Shilang could speak, a heavily made-up Mama-san came over to greet Dong Shilang and the other two. Mama-san, do you have the bus service? As soon as he entered the door, Dong Shilang did not feel shy for the first time in such a place, and began to ask the other party openly. Of course, our shop has everything, including bus, porn, raw, F.O. Even porn. Give me a bus, and give these two guys a massage. After saying this, Toshiro pursed his lips at the two timid little ghosts behind him, signaling the two guys to choose two ladies of their choice. Senior, what is a bus? Toshiro was so shameless, the two guys felt relieved. Seeing that Toshiro was doing different things from them, they couldn't help but ask curiously. This, touching the fluff on his chin, which had gradually begun to grow, Toshiro narrowed his eyes and smiled mischievously. No need to ask, both of you should change to the same project as me. As he said this, Dong Shilang also said to the madam beside him, Mama-san, you go find two experienced and enthusiastic young ladies and entertain them well. As for me, he swept his eyes across the entire lobby and pointed at a young lady with a hot body and a young face. Let's go with her. No problem. Please follow me. As he said this, Mama-san led Dong Shilang, Ebisu behind him, and Shire Anui Genmin upstairs. Senior, didn't we agree that it was just a massage? What's that bus? Ebisu seemed a little dissatisfied with Dong Shilang's decision for the two of them. He rubbed his hands and said hesitantly, don't make the decision for us so easily. If I don't make the decision for you two guys will almost bury your heads in your crotch, let alone pick people. I'm just doing a good thing to the end. While helping you solve this problem, I also help you change the project. What's wrong with that? Don't worry, you will thank me in the end. After saying this, Dong Shilang didn't care about the two rookies anymore, because they had already reached their respective rooms. Just wait in your respective rooms. Someone will come to entertain you two later. Fearing that the two guys would embarrass themselves, Dong Shilang did not forget to tell them a word, and then closed the door of his room. Yanwicho. You can't take this off. Not long after, some faint sounds came from the rooms on both sides of Dong Shiro, Ebisu and Genma. Seeing this, Dong Shiro couldn't help but think of his experience in his previous life. when he got on the wrong bus after a party between colleagues. It seemed that the past was still vivid in his mind. Can you two keep your voices down? If you disturb other customers like this, how can they do business? As if thinking of some interesting experience, Toshiro casually threw a magazine at hand against the wall, making a crisp sound. Then, the faint sound disappeared without a trace. Toshiro, this time, hooked the corners of his mouth and revealed a silent smile. Wait until nearly an hour later. Also in this Onzindi, Toshiro, Ebisu, and Genma, all bare-chested, slowly lay in a hot spring bath. How is it? I didn't lie to you. Do you feel like you have been refreshed from head to toe? With a white hot towel on his head, Toshiro looked at the two guys beside him who were still in a trance, and smiled at them with a smug look. The training of a ninja is a very hard thing. It is still necessary to relax properly. Toshiro picked up a cup of sake floating on the wooden tray on the water, raised his head and drank it all. Toshiro, with a slightly flushed face, blinked at the two of them. Want a cup? No, no. Not only Ebisu, but even Genma, who always looked lazy, hurriedly refused Toshiro's kindness. This time, the two of them were brought to this place by Toshiro, which really opened the door to a new world for themselves. They felt that their so-called boldness in the ninja school before was really a world of difference compared to this time. It was just like children playing house. After drinking the sake in his cup, Toshiro frowned. It seems that something is wrong. With Toshiro's keen perception, he could feel that a faint sense of uneasiness began to suppress his heart. Did Obito come today? Ever since receiving the news of Obito's death, Toshiro knew that this guy might not be really dead. This time, he even revealed the news that he might come to attack Kushina a week in advance to Minato Namikaze. But looking at this, today's Ninetales rebellion is still inevitable. But in this case, whether or not I should take action is a problem, although there are some clues about opening my Meixiang Sharingan. After all, the experiment time is still short, and I dare not experiment on myself so soon. As for the white Zetsu cell, its research plan is still ranked after the Meixiang Sharingan, and there is no shadow. Senior, what's wrong? Xoanjian, who has been secretly paying attention to Toshiro, saw that his expression had changed a little, and seemed to have noticed something, so he looked up and looked around. I don't know, but it seems like something big is going to happen. The intuition of ninjas is amazing. In the words of Toshiro's previous life, once something big happens, they will have an impulse from time to time. And Genma Shiranui is worthy of being selected by Minato Namikaze to serve as a member of his Shadow Guard and teach him Flying Thunder God. His perception ability is also quite sharp, but if nothing unexpected happens, Minato should have had an accident. Does anyone know what means? Chapter 292 Nine-Tailed Escape. Just when Toshiro noticed something, Namikaze Minato rushed out of a house tightly wrapped in a barrier, holding a petite figure. I fell into the opponent's trap. Pulling out the wooden thorn that pierced his foot, the young fourth Hokage looked back at the room behind him, his face gloomier than ever. A week ago, he received information that someone would come to attack Kushina, and for this, he also made some preparations. But he didn't expect that the opponent actually would release an space-time ninjutsu, and the space-time ninjutsu could actually ignore his sealing array directly. And the opponent seemed to know the situation on his side very well. Not only would the seal of the Ninetales loosen when Kushina gave birth, but he was also familiar with some of his arrangements. The opponent's companions even transformed into members of the Anbu, and took advantage of his unpreparedness to launch a sneak attack on Kushina, so he fell into the opponent's trap. Wow, wow, wow. Naruto, are you scared? Looking at the baby in his arms, who was crying loudly because of the explosion just now, Minato Namikaze quickly comforted him a few words, and at the same time tightened his arms to protect Naruto more tightly. But this is really not the time to comfort each other. He must rush to Kushina's side as soon as possible. Otherwise, the consequences will be disastrous. Swish. A faint smoke and dust scattered, and his figure was no longer there. In the center of Konoha, only 2 streets away from Onzindi where Toshiro patronized, a figure wearing a black hood and an orange striped mask appeared silently. As soon as he appeared, He sprinkled the blood he had prepared in advance on the ground, and then, summoning technique, a huge smokescreen rose, and a terrifying and violent atmosphere came from the prosperous center of Konoha City. What happened? A huge roar came, and Ebisu, who was just recalling his previous experience, lost his seat and almost fell into the hot spring. He hurriedly tried to keep his balance. Before he could recover from the incident, he saw his senior Toshiro in front of him and his teammate Genma, staring at the back of him. He quickly turned his head and crossed the wall of the entertainment shop. He saw a huge orange fox, which appeared less than a kilometer away from him and his team. Is this the nine-tailed fox? Looking at the crazy and terrifying figure behind him, Ebisu's small but bright eyes were bigger than the sunglasses on his nose, and his face was full of disbelief. How could the nine-tailed fox appear here? Genma Shiranui, a member of Minato Nimike's shadow guard, was the first to react. As the guard of the fourth Hokage, he knew something about what was inside Kushina's body. Today, due to some special reasons, several of the younger members of the shadow guard had a holiday. However, if the Nine-Tails appears here, then the fourth Hokage and Lady Kushina, Senior Toshiro, Ebisu, I'm leaving first. Seeing this scene, he jumped out of the hot spring and rushed towards the Hokage building. Xoanjian, even if you are anxious now, you should at least take care of your clothes. As if he felt the coolness coming from under him, Xoanjian paused and rushed to the place where his clothes were stored. But before he took a few steps, a strong hand grabbed his arm. At the same time, the wind pressure formed by the heavy objects being thrown away swept across his hair. It made him have goosebumps all over his body. Boom! There was a sound of heavy objects falling to the ground, and then all kinds of debris were splashed. This time it's really bad luck. He took Genma and Ebisu and hid everywhere, looking at the clogs on his feet and the yukata on his body, feeling the coolness coming from under him. Don Shilang was overwhelmed. He never thought that Ibito, an idiot, would actually summon the Nine-Tails near the flower street. He was really embarrassed at this time. If he hadn't pulled him just now, Genma, who went to get his clothes, would have been buried in the custom shop just now by the debris blown away by the Nine-Tails. Great Fireball made a seal casually, and cast a ninjutsu in the sky behind him, dispersing the debris coming towards him and others. Go this way. After observing the movements around him, Don Shilang took the two panicked guys and left the Nine-Tails attack range. Standing on a rooftop nearly 2 or 3 kilometers away from the Nine-Tails, he quietly observed the Nine-Tails rampage. Ibito was really cruel this time. Not only Toshiro and his group, but also a lot of people were in trouble. This was the most prosperous red light district in Konoha. He had just exploded a bomb here, and it was a heavyweight like the nine-tailed fox. No matter which village it was estimated that it would not be able to withstand it. At this time, the nine-tailed fox just casually swung its tail. Its huge number of tails swept across the wooden buildings around it, leaving a deep mark on the ground, and those buildings were blown away by it. Those buildings that were blown away flew a distance and smashed the people and buildings that were escaping in the distance into pieces, causing heavy casualties. I can't care so much, Toshiro Sr., Ebisu is in your hands. I'll go to the Hokage building first. After saying this, Genma rushed to the location of the Hokage building barefoot, completely ignoring his current embarrassed appearance. It seems that this guy is just lazy on the surface, and he still has a heart that cares about the village and his companions. What should we do, Senior? Should we find a place to take shelter now, or? Looking at Toshiro, who was looking at the nine tails, Ebisu seemed to sense that the other party was ready to try, and swallowed his saliva and asked with some stammering. At the same time, he did not forget to look up at the nine tails in the distance, with cold sweat all over his head. Ebisu, you should find a place to take shelter first, or do something within your ability. Looking at the nine tails in the distance, Toshiro felt that if he turned on the sage mode, he could still entangle for a while. By then, no matter whether the third Hokage or the fourth Hokage came over, he would not have to fight head-on, so there should be no problem. I just don't know if it's a waste of effort to do this. Chapter 293 Danzo's efforts. Actually, they really escaped. In the office of the Hokage building, the elderly Sandame Sarutobi Hiruzen, looking at the rampaging nine tails in the distance, controlled his fluctuating emotions. With a heavy face, he began to arrange the defense of the village. Arrange personnel to prevent those young ninjas from being impulsive. Call the Anbu, the security forces, the root, the guard forces, the sealing squad. Open the shelter and let everyone in the village take refuge in it. Although he had received a warning from Minato Namikaze in advance, when the nine tails really escaped, feeling the other party's violent chakra and magnificent power, the Sandame still couldn't control his emotions, and even his voice trembled slightly when he ordered his subordinates. Yes, following the orders one by one, the masked Anbu disappeared around him like ghosts. Hiruzen, the Uchiha cannot be involved in this matter. Their Sharingan can control the tailed beasts. When the Sandame Hokage was busy dealing with the nine tails, Shimura Danzo, who was leaning on a cane, said this sinisterly. Danzo, you still have the nerve to show up here? The Sandame Hokage got angry when he saw this guy. Previously, the fourth Hokage proposed to mobilize more manpower to strengthen the defense of the village. It was this guy who interfered, saying that the fourth Hokage was using this excuse to seize power, which made him a little hesitant and caused the current situation of insufficient preparation. Unexpectedly, the other party appeared in front of him again at this time. Hiruzen, don't forget how that man manipulated the nine tails to attack Konoha. Danzo Shimura ignored the angry look of the third Hokage and continued, don't forget the teacher's teachings and warnings. Being on guard against the Uchiha was just an excuse. For Danzo, letting his root go to the front line to deal with the nine tails was something he could never accept. He only had so much capital. If all of it was lost to the nine tails this time, what capital would he have to covet the throne of Hokage? And this was also an opportunity. If something really happened to Minato Namikaze in this incident, wouldn't his chance come? Even if the other party got away safely, the nine tails Jinchuriki was his wife, and the other party was rampaging in the village, and the other party could not get rid of this responsibility, as long as he operated properly afterwards. He didn't believe that he couldn't drive this kid down from the position of Hokage. At that time, if he didn't have a reliable force in his hands, how could his dream come true? Uchiha. When the other party mentioned that person, the Sandame's mind seemed to recall a figure in a black robe with a stern face. Let the Uchiha help those villagers and protect those civilians. After a little thought, the Sandame continued, since you proposed it, you should do it. After saying this, he no longer cared about Danzo, but tightened his equipment and went to the gathering point of those Anbu and Jonin. Compared with dealing with Danzo and Uchiha, he had more important things to do. What did you say? We Uchiha are not allowed to participate in intercepting the nine tails? Hearing this news, the neatly dressed Uchiha seemed to be betrayed, and almost all of them turned pale. We have received an order that the Uchiha clan is not allowed to participate in the interception mission of the nine tails. Otherwise, this member of the root did not say what the consequences would be if he did not obey the order, but from his and the people behind him drawing their swords, the meaning was self-evident. Whose orders did you receive? Just when Fugaku was considering whether to obey the order, a clear voice came into his ears. You know, the fourth Hokage is in power now, and the other party has not shown up until now. Where did you get the order from? Did the fourth Hokage approve it? With Tawashiru's shout, the whole scene fell into silence, and almost everyone cast their eyes on the suddenly appeared Anbu. Only Uchiha, who was beside Tawashiru, was extremely nervous at this time. She knew exactly what her boss was like. If she was caught, she, as a subordinate, would have a hard time. The order came from the village high level. Faced with Uchiha's doubts, the leading root member didn't care where his order came from. They were the root, and they just had to accept Danzo's orders and complete the mission. Follow the orders of the village high level. Looking at the clansmen around him, and then at the number of Anbu in front of him, what would happen if he and others didn't obey Zhao Chen's orders? Even if they break through the blockade of these root members, how much fighting power will they have left? In this case, it is better to obey Zhao Chen's orders. Captain, This time it is not just Dong Shilang. Almost all the Uchiha clan members present expressed their dissatisfaction to their clan leader. Follow orders. Dong Shilang did not expect that he was still hesitant even after he handed the excuse to Fugaku. He really deserves to be the man who can teach 1 against 7. That, although I am a little embarrassed, but I am actually a shadow clone. The situation over there seems to be a little urgent. I will leave first. After saying this, the shadow clone turned into a ball of smoke and disappeared on the spot. At this moment, let alone the Uchiha, even the rude ninjas with their ninja swords drawn on the opposite side did not know what to say. Everyone will do some shadow clones to slack off, but at such an urgent moment tonight, you actually use shadow clones to slack off, which is a bit too much. What's going on? Although the leader left, the secretary stayed. Almost everyone looked at Tawashiru's secretary. This, being tricked by her leader, Uchiha had no choice but to honestly explain the fact that her boss used his shadow clone to slack off while her real body went out to go shopping. However, before these Uchiha clan members could digest the news they had just received, an orange red barrier rose in the direction of the village center. It's the fire ray. Looking at the barrier in the distance, many experienced Uchiha clan members recognized this barrier that could be used to restrict giant summon beasts. Chapter 294 Rage. They are really one after another, standing on the rooftop in the distance, feeling the cool night breeze, watching the ninjas who came one after another to join the interception of the Nine Tails. Dong Shilang had decided the determination of these people to protect their homes should not be underestimated. Although most of them were doing some useless work, no one gave up. Ebisu, you should go to help those trapped civilians. It's too early for you to go to the Nine Tails. Seeing that his partner today was also going to go to the Nine Tails to stop the other party from harming the village, Dong Shilang was surprised and kicked this guy who was in the way into the flower street just now. Let the other party rescue the injured young ladies. Uchiha fire formation. Looking at the Konoha ninjas who gradually gathered, receiving the fairy chakra transmitted from his shadow clone, Dong Shilang did not hesitate at all and directly performed this sealing technique that blocked the 8 tails for a period of time in the original work. Shadow clones. He created several clones and opened several exits at the edge of the barrier for ordinary people to escape. Ninjutsu? Summoning technique. A barrier alone is not a big deal. It is estimated that the barrier will not be able to withstand 1 or 2-tailed beast balls from the 9 tails. Tawashiru bit his finger and performed the summoning technique to find a helper for himself. Of course, it was not a half-baked person like the mountain eagle. Chubeo Umaru, I will trouble you next. A huge lizard appeared in front of the 9 tails at this time. Not long ago, Tawashiru felt that his mountain eagle was a half-baked person in actual combat, so he thought of the Suzaki lizard and signed a summoning contract with it. This time it was just right to deal with the 9 tails. Master Tawashiru, even if I can't hold out for long against the 9 tails. Seeing the 9 tails, Chiubimaru was surprised and told the truth. Although it was confident that it could defeat Bunda of Mayabaku Mountain and Manda of Richi Cave, but facing the 9 tails, it really has no confidence. Don't worry, this is Konoha. You just need to drag this big guy in this barrier for a while, and someone will come to clean up this trouble. After saying this, Dong Shilang turned his head and shouted to the stunned Konoha ninjas below him. This is the security force. All Konoha ninjas, listen to my command for the time being. Showing her Sharingan, Dong Shilang continued, all ninjas who don't have long-range containment means, temporarily withdraw from the barrier, help evacuate and rescue civilians. The rest of the people, come with me to contain this big guy. Also, someone go to the Hokage building to let the Hokage confirm how to deal with this place. Yes, at this time, these people who gathered together had no organization at all. They rushed forward one by one regardless of whether they had any long-range attacks or containment means. Some of them were even more exaggerated, holding some weapons such as shurikens and kunai, trying to stop the 9 tails from destroying the village. What else can these people do besides throwing away their lives uselessly? Dong Shilang, who was standing on Chiubimaru's head, shook his head. Yes, sir. The ninjas were still very quick. Seeing that the person who came out was the famous Uchiha in the village, and the summoned beasts and the barrier he cast were so exaggerated. They did not hesitate at all and followed Dong Shilang's instructions. Those who retreated, and those who used long-range skills from a distance continued to use long-range skills. Go! Chiubimaru with Dong Shilang's low shout. Chiubimaru's huge body rushed towards the Nine Tails like a huge locomotive. Boom! A muffled sound came, and even the ground jumped. The Konoha ninjas who were attacking from a distance were shaken to the ground. All ninjas who know the Yellow Spring Swamp use the Yellow Spring Swamp, and the others use their own methods. Be careful not to let the ninjutsu conflict. After letting Chiubimaru under him hit the Nine Tails on the opposite side into the Yellow Spring Swamp he had prepared in advance, Dong Shilang began to order those ninjas who were attacking from a distance to contribute their own strength. The Nine Tails was too violent. If he was alone, he would not be able to control it for long, since these people loved the village so much. Now was the time for them to contribute their strength. Damn it! Only when he really faced the Nine Tails did he know how violent this guy's power was. What's more, it was not divided into two by Minato Namikaze, but still a whole, fire-style, dragon flame song technique facing the Nine Tails wrapped in a large amount of chakra and hurricane, which were lashed towards him and Chiubimaru. Toshiro felt a headache. The destructive power caused by the swing of each tail of this guy was no less than the release of a large-scale A-level ninjutsu, and the power was amazing. What was even more troublesome was that the opponent had not only one tail, but 9 tails. When they were swung together, there were simply not many people who could resist it. Thank you for your hard work, Chiubimaru. Fortunately, he was not fighting alone. He blocked 5 tails with his ninjutsu, and the remaining 4 were blocked by Chiubimaru under him. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, the Nine Tails, which was trapped in the Yellow Spring Swamp, opened its big mouth, and a dangerous breath that made people's hearts tremble began to spread in this barrier. Abito, that bastard, actually released the tailed beast ball on me. I should have killed this bastard directly. Looking at the Nine Tails on the opposite side, the Magatama in Toshiro's eyes was spinning wildly, and a wave of palpitations filled his heart. If he didn't handle it well this time, it was possible that he would die directly. Earth escape, earthquake core through the side of the Sharingan. Toshiro saw that the opponent's tailed beast ball was almost ready. Without the slightest hesitation, he directly controlled the land under the Nine Tails and raised a tall stone pillar to the opponent's chin. Boom! A group of colorful fireworks exploded above the sky of Konoha. The light it emitted, not to mention Konoha, even the residents of the Land of Fire, who were tens or hundreds of kilometers away, could see the sudden appearance of fireworks in the night sky. What a close call! Wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, Toshiro felt a chill on his back. Not to mention him, who in the entire barrier was not grateful and felt that they had survived a disaster. Chapter 295 Ape Demon. Snap, snap, snap. Trees, ruins of houses, and rocks on the ground flew and hit a fiery red barrier, then they were burned clean by the flames attached to the barrier. Boom! As a huge fiery red tail whipped, crack, 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 there were waves of sounds of the barrier being overwhelmed and about to break apart. What's going on over there in the Hokage building? After so long, why hasn't the main force come yet? Standing on Chiubimaru's head, looking at the Nine Tails that had struggled out of the Yellow Spring Swamp, Toshiro yelled at the ninjas below. Even if Chiubimaru was Masashi Kishimoto's summoned beast, with Toshiro, it was estimated that he would not be able to hold on for much longer. He had to send someone to see what was going on over there with the Hokage and when the reinforcements would come. I don't know, but how could these ordinary Konoha ninjas know about this kind of thing? They all turned their heads to look at the opening of the ceiling barrier, as if waiting for something. Without the Meixiang, it's still too much trouble to deal with the Nine Tails. Even though he has activated the Sage mode and the power of his ninjutsu has increased greatly, he still can't cope with the Nine Tails with almost unlimited chakra. The Nine Tails is too strong. The barrier won't last much longer. Everyone get ready as for what to prepare. Of course, it's to fight desperately. Without this fire formation surrounding it, the Nine Tails doesn't have to move at all. As long as it swings its tail, Konoha can't stand it. At that time, it's time for the people below to fight desperately. Sorry, it's late. Just when Toshiro was considering whether to retreat first, a figure in black combat uniform appeared above Chibimaru's head. It's the Sandaime. Seeing the other party appear, Toshiro showed a happy expression, and then said, "It's just right, with the Sandaime Hokage, the strongest Hokage, I think the Nine Tails and the like will be no problem at all. I can finally breathe a sigh of relief." As he said this, Toshiro gave up the C position, indicating that the next thing would depend on you, the old leader. Toshiro. Seeing that the other party was ready to give up, the Sandaime Hokage couldn't control the twitching of his mouth. He wanted to say that the title of the strongest Hokage was just an empty title. Everyone should not pay attention to these things at this time, and it is better to turn their attention to the Nine Tails. But before he could say anything, another figure in the uniform of the Anbu also appeared above Chibimaru's head, causing the other party to shake his head unhappily. Uchiha Toshiro. The higher-ups ordered that Uchiha should not participate in intercepting the Nine Tails. Speaking of Comrade Danzo, the subordinates he trained were really not dull. After receiving the order, they were really conscientious and fulfilled their duties. Looking at their appearance, it was no wonder that they were able to assassinate the Sandaime Hokage later. Since the Anbu ordered this, there is nothing we can do. How about we leave this to the Sandaime Hokage? I'll go to the back to take a rest. Seeing this, rude ninja who suddenly jumped out, Toshiro pretended to be confused and directly called him Anbu. At the same time, he said that he was a good comrade who obeyed orders. This is left to you, the Sandaime. Even with the restraint of the Sandaime Hokage, he almost spit on the rude ninja at this time. These subordinates of Danzo are really getting more and more useless. Each of them is like a task machine, and they don't even know how to read people's expressions. But it's better this way, so that nothing big can be accomplished. Toshiro, it's too early to talk about rest now. Let's wait until this trouble is solved. As for this Anbu, don't pay attention to his words. They are just some words of provocation with ulterior motives. While saying this, the Sandaime also cast his hidden eyes on the white bathrobe that Toshiro was wearing, and at the same time, the big words Teonzindi on the bathrobe. What are you resting for now? Didn't you rest enough before? As a Hokage, he knows Teonzindi very well. If it weren't for his status and the fierceness of Lake Biwa, he would also like to see it. Speaking of which, he is almost retired now. Can he use the transformation technique? After all, he has worked hard for Konoha all his life. Now that he is old, shouldn't he enjoy himself? Cough, cough. Being looked at by the Sandaime Hokage's hidden eyes, Toshiro was really a little embarrassed. He had to cough a few times to cover up his embarrassment. Fortunately, he had just found a pair of shorts from the store next door. Otherwise he would have been too embarrassed to see anyone. Crash, crash! Exclamation mark. Fortunately, at this critical moment, the Nine Tails helped him break the embarrassment. The combined power of several tails destroyed the barrier cast by Toshiro. I wonder if the Sandaime has any battle plan? Looking at the rampaging Nine Tails, Toshiro did not continue to worry about the Anbu just now, as the other party had been taken away by the guards of the Sandaime Hokage. If this guy continues to stay in the village, the damage he caused will only become more and more serious. Let's drive him out of the village first. Looking at the debris lifted by the Nine Tails' tail, smashing the buildings in the village and those who did not have time to dodge, the Sandaime had no time to take care of guarding against Uchiha at this time. What the village needs now is the opponent's strength, especially the summoned beast under the opponent. Shizaki Lizard, it's really unexpectedly powerful. And the opponent's strength. This Uchiha Toshiro has grown to this point without knowing it. If I remember correctly, the opponent is not yet 17 years old, and he is really gifted. Ninjutsu middle. Summoning middle. Sarutobi. This is not the time to worry about these things. The third Hokage directly summoned the strongest of the monkey clan that has been passed down from generation to generation in his family. It's the Nine Tails, and the Suzaki Lizard. Today is really lively. Sarutobi. As a puff of smoke dispersed, an old monkey with white hair and beard, a burly figure, and wearing a tiger skin skirt appeared between Toshiro and the third Hokage. It was the summoned beast of the third Hokage, the Monkey King Sarutobi. Sarutobi, this time I have to rely on you and the lizard under Toshiro to cooperate to drive the Nine Tails out of the village. Please. If it was just one person, it would be very difficult to face the Nine Tails. At this time, with Toshiro joining, it would be much easier to deal with the Nine Tails. Chapter 296 Expulsion. Please, Inma, transform into the Vajra rod. Okay. Faced with the request of the Sandaime Hokage, Inma did not hesitate and directly entered the combat state. Transform with a slight puff of smoke. The old monkey's figure was no longer there, and only a large iron rod with golden ends and pure black in the middle was left. Toshiro, if the Suzuki lizard cooperates, we should be able to drive the Nine Tails out of the village in one go. Handing the Ruai rod in his hand directly to Toshiro, the Sandaime thought that letting Toshiro's summoned beasts perform the Ruai rod would be a better way to expel the Nine Tails. Next, I will cooperate with Inma to perform the transformation technique, so I'll leave it to you. No problem, but I hope Inma won't have any objections. The tempers of summoned beasts are generally not very good, especially those powerful summoned beasts. When they get angry, it's really a headache. It's okay. If it's a Suzuki lizard, then you are qualified to cooperate with me. Before the Sandaime could answer, an eye suddenly appeared in the middle of the big iron rod held by Toshiro, and said to Toshiro, who was communicating with the Sandaime, I didn't expect that this time we would have to deal with the enemy together with Uchiha. This is really unpredictable. In that case, let's get started. At this time, the Nine Tails had destroyed the Uchiha fire formation set up by Toshiro, and was turning around and heading towards their current direction. If they didn't handle it well, it would cause them a lot of trouble, and it was not impossible that they would be killed directly. Chubeo Umaru. Toshiro threw the iron rod in his hand into the air and didn't care about it anymore, but raised his head and stared at the Nine Tails that was rushing over. On the one hand, he was keeping a close eye on the opponent's every move, and on the other hand, he was trying to use his Sharingan to interfere with Obito's control over the Nine Tails. Of course, he knew that doing so would not make much sense, but his purpose was not to get the Nine Tails out of control, but to see what the difference was between the power of the Mangekyo and his ordinary Sharingan. This would also make it easier for him to prepare for the next eye-opening transformation technique. Before Toshiro could make more attempts, with the cooperation of the third Hokage, the monkey demon transformed his large iron rod, which could only be hugged by one person, into a golden hoop with a diameter of nearly 2 or 3 feet and a length of nearly 40 or 50 meters. Chibimaru held it in his claws and pushed it towards the Nine Tails that rushed in front of him. With Chibimaru's ballast stone of considerable size and weight, and the cooperation of the third Hokage, the golden hoop that the monkey demon transformed this time reached the peak of its size and length. With just one cooperation, as the length of the golden hoop increased, the Nine Tails was pushed out of the village. Even the wall at the edge of the village did not play any role, and a big hole was directly knocked out. Don't relax. This guy has no intention of giving up. Chubeo Umaru, keep going. No problem. Stand firm. After replying to Toshiro, Chubai held the Ruai Jing'u Bang, which could be large or small, and continued to push against the body of the Nine Tails, charging along the ditch that the Nine Tails had just plowed. He tried to make the Nine Tails farther away from the village. Boom, boom, boom. As Chubai sprinted, the buildings beside the ditch began to jump up and down with his footsteps. Even the Konoha ninjas standing on the houses or trees nearby could not control their balance and fell to the ground one after another. It's really exaggerated. This level of battle is not something we can participate in at all. A Konoha ninja who had just landed on the ground and stabilized his body looked at the Sandaime and Toshiro standing above Chubai, and then looked at the Nine Tails in the distance, and was stunned. Yeah, it's not at the same level at all. His exclamation soon attracted the echoes of the ordinary ninjas around him. How is it? Isn't it awesome? Senior Toshiro is the pride of our ninja school. He is also my best friend. At this time, Ebisu was helping the injured or buried civilians. Hearing someone say this about Toshiro, he immediately felt proud. I think we are more like drinking buddies. And, Ebisu, you have really grown up. At such a young age, you dare to go to the Teoman New Land in the Flower Street to have fun. It seems that we really can't treat you as a kid. After hearing Ebisu's speech, a ninja who knew him immediately saw that he still had the same bathrobe as Toshiro, and couldn't help but tease him. You should find a piece of clothing to put on first. Your butt is showing. Ha, ha, ha. Although the danger was not eliminated, the Ninetales was driven out of the village by those bigwigs, and ordinary people like them could finally breathe a sigh of relief. One by one, they began to tease Ebisu. It was also the boy's own fault. He was so anxious to save the ordinary villagers who were in distress that he even forgot to find a pair of pants for himself. In addition, his thin bathrobe could not hold up when he was saving people in the ruins. Now it had holes in it and was barely hanging on his body. Being exposed by others about his visit to the red light district, Ebisu's face suddenly turned into a monkey's butt. Especially when a breeze blew, he felt that his lower body was unusually cool. How could he stay here any longer? He quickly performed a body flash technique and disappeared from the spot. Sandame, I wonder if you have prepared any countermeasures. If we cannot restrict the opponent's movements and chakra, even you and I, plus Chiubimaru and Saruma, will not be able to control the Ninetales for long. Also, how is the fourth Hokage now? So much time has passed, and he, looking at the Ninetales' wide-open mouth and the tailed beast ball that was rapidly forming in his mouth, Toshiro closely watched the Ninetales' movements while asking the panting third Hokage beside him. At this time, the third Hokage only cooperated with Saruman to perform a large-scale transformation technique, and when Chiubimaru sprinted later, the chakra consumed to maintain this ninjutsu had already made his gradually aging body unable to make ends meet, and he was a little out of breath. The fourth Hokage, hearing Toshiro's question, the third Hokage was also a little confused. But he also knew that with the strength of the fourth Hokage and his wife, they must have encountered a difficult enemy. Otherwise, things would not have turned out like this. A little tangled. Should the fourth Hokage be written to die? Chapter 297 Restrictions. The Yondaime must have encountered a lot of trouble. It seems that only I and Toshiro can hold on for a while here. Looking at the wide-open mouth of the Ninetales and the huge blue-black-tailed beast ball in its mouth, the Sandame Hokage raised his eyes. An old man like him really felt powerless in the face of the Ninetales. If it weren't for Toshiro and the opponent's summoned beasts, he estimated that his old bones would fall apart after a few rounds of tossing by the Ninetales. Now, Chiubimaru, do it. The chakra of the Ninetales on the opposite side had almost gathered, and Chiubimaru, who was reminded by Toshiro, directly waved the huge golden hoop in his hand, which had expanded to more than 10 meters thick and more than 200 meters long, and whipped it towards the head of the Ninetales. This was also the reason why the Sandame couldn't bear the consumption, even if he and Urako worked together, to maintain this scale of transformation. He had to add Urako's Vajra indestructibility, and the consumption was too great. Fire style, flame ball in order to cooperate with Chiubimaru's attack and eliminate the interference of the Ninetales. Toshiro was not idle either. He directly spit out 9 football-sized fireballs from his mouth and attacked the Ninetales' tail. These fireballs, one by one, emitted light, with a little bit of golden light and the orange-red, which made the Sandame Hokage on the side narrow his eyes unconsciously. Boom! Exclamation mark! A series of dazzling flames exploded, and violent explosions were heard. The airwaves blew the surrounding trees to the ground. Before the Konoha ninjas who rushed over could adapt, a more violent explosion sounded from the edge of Konoha village. Then there was a dazzling light, which illuminated the entire Konoha as bright as day. This ninjutsu? Seeing Toshiro's flame ball, the Sandame felt that this ninjutsu gave him a sense of déjà vu, and couldn't help asking. This ninjutsu is a ninjutsu that I developed by referring to the fourth Hokage's Rasengan and adding the change of the nature of the fire-attributed chakra. It is an upgraded version of fire style, Phoenix Flame Bomb. This ninjutsu is somewhat similar to the Prince's Wind style, Rasenshuriken, but its power is not as exaggerated. It is also a ninjutsu that requires hand seals to perform. But compared to this, Isn't there any good solution for the sealing squad? If it is not restricted, although Chibimaru's stick changed the trajectory of the tailed beast ball, it is still too close to Konoha, and there is no guarantee that they will not miss. If something goes wrong, the whole village will be in danger. Sealing squad, unless we completely restrict the Nine-Tails' actions. Otherwise, the third Hokage was also a little helpless at this time. The most powerful sealing masters in Konoha were Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. The strength of the rest of them was really limited. When facing the Nine-Tails, they could not help at all. Doesn't the village have any emergency plan? Hearing the words of the Sandaime Hokage, Toshiro really had a mouthful of MMP stuck in his throat, and he really didn't know how to complain. It's a pity that he handed over the information that Obito might attack Konoha to the fourth Hokage and his wife a week in advance. So why is the village's response still so lame? No. Facing Toshiro's question, the third Hokage was a little speechless. If you want to blame this, blame Danzo Shimura. If this bastard hadn't said that this was an excuse that Minato Namikaze found to take back his power, he would have been a little defensive. Otherwise the village's response would not have been so hasty. If the Nine-Tails is controlled, can those people in the sealing squad seal the Nine-Tails? Seeing this scene, Toshiro was also helpless, and could only hope that the sealing ninjas in his village could help. Otherwise, he had no good way, and could only wait for the fourth Hokage and his wife to arrive. Okay. Gritting his teeth and considering the strength of the sealing squad, the third Hokage answered with a lack of confidence. Then please ask the Sandaime to make some arrangements. I will be here. Saruma and Chibimaru will hold the foregrounds for the time being. If it really doesn't work, it would be nice to try some large earth escape traps. Looking up at the sky, feeling that everything was almost ready, Toshiro added, let those ninjas who are restrained from a distance use fire escape ninjutsu as much as possible. I will prepare a jutsu. Okay, I'll leave it to you. I will arrange it as soon as possible. Wait for my signal. Seeing Toshiro's serious expression and a certain degree of confidence, the Sandaime Hokage did not hesitate and left Chibimaru's head in an instant to prepare means to restrict the Nine-Tails. He did not even take his own summoning beast Saruma with him. The next step is to delay time and wait for the Kirin to be cast. Looking at the dark clouds gathering in the night sky, Toshiro muttered to himself. He was not afraid of the Sandaime Hokage causing trouble at this time. Although the other party was on guard against Uchiha, they had to wait and see when it would happen. At this critical moment, Konoha is relying on his power to control the Nine-Tails, so it's not a big problem. In addition, he also plans to show off his muscles. As a group of ninjas, it all depends on your own strength. If you keep pretending to be a harmless rookie, waiting to play the pig to eat the tiger, maybe the other party will really treat you as an easy bully and step on you whenever they want. Even if there is no substantial damage, it's not too annoying. Hiruzen. This is an opportunity when you restrict the Nine-Tails later. By the way, just as Toshiro was busy dealing with the Nine-Tails and the Sandaime was busy summoning the members of the sealing class to seal the Nine-Tails, a figure appeared behind the Sandaime Hokage and whispered in his ear. It was Shimura Denzo who proposed to restrict Uchiha from approaching the Nine-Tails at the very beginning. After hearing the report from his subordinates, he came to check the situation and happened to meet Sarutobi Hiruzen, who was summoning the members of the sealing class to restrict the Nine-Tails. He could no longer control the darkness in his heart, and proposed the suggestion to Sarutobi Hiruzen. No, Uchiha Toshiro is our comrade. Besides, at this time, the other party is trying hard to stop the rampage of the Nine-Tails. How can we do that? Shocked by the suggestion made by his old friend, the Sandaime directly rejected Danzo's suggestion. Although the other party is an Uchiha, he usually dislikes him to some extent, but in this situation, he can't lose the other party's combat power anyway. In addition, the situation on Minato's side is also unclear. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo fanfic novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298. Minato and Obito. Who are you? Seeing that the masked man opposite did not answer, Minato continued to ask, where did you get this Sharingan in your eye? The enemy opposite not only possessed the bloodline limit would escape that had been lost in Konoha, but also possessed a Sharingan. He was also proficient in space-time ninjutsu, which was really a difficult enemy. I got it from the Third War. Looking at his teacher's gloomy face, Obito felt a sense of pleasure and revenge. Although Rin asked him not to blame the village, how could he do that after losing his beloved? Just like the second pillar in the original work, after hearing that his most beloved brother chose to sacrifice the entire clan and himself to protect Konoha, in the end, he chose to take revenge on the village. He also made the same choice. Uri, could it be? Seeing that his teacher seemed to have noticed something, Obito's heart skipped a beat. If the teacher recognized him, he really didn't know how to face his former teacher for a moment. Could it be that you are the murderer who attacked the root members last time and stole Obito's Sharingan? Since you have wood release, you should be a member of Konoha. Why did you attack the village? Seeing that the other party did not deny it, Namikaze Minato asked his own question. Well, who knows? Maybe it's for war. Maybe it's for peace. Or maybe it's a sudden whim. Seeing that his teacher did not recognize him, Obito was relieved, but he also secretly complained in his heart that as his teacher, he did not recognize his identity. The so-called yellow flash is nothing more than that. It seems that Konoha still has some good ninjas. You actually drove the Ninetales out of the village. I really underestimated you. Looking at the figure standing on the back of the giant lizard in the distance, Obito had to admit that he underestimated the strength of his good brother. I didn't expect that the other party had reached such a level that even the Ninetales could be temporarily blocked. Good opportunity. Seeing that the other party was still distracted by the situation of the Ninetales in Konoha at this time, Namikaze Minato did not hesitate at all, holding the Flying Thunder God kunai, and launched an attack on the other party. As for the village, looking at the current situation, there should be no big problem. Is this bad old Sandaime going to trick me? Standing on Chibimaru's head, Toshiro never thought that the Sandaime Hokage's skills were so poor that he couldn't stand up to the Ninetales. The water content of this strongest Hokage is really too weak. Saruma, what's the situation with the Sandaime? If he doesn't prepare the seal, he will use you as a scapegoat when he runs away later. Looking at the big iron rod held by Chibimaru, Toshiro said to the old monkey in a bad tone, the other party should have some special way of contact with the Sandaime Hokage. We're almost ready. And, kid, not everyone is as shady as you, Uchiha. Why would Sarutobi harm his own comrades? You're too suspicious. TSK. You're taking advantage of your age. After being retorted by Sarutobi, Toshiro just complained and didn't care much, because at this time the Ninetales attack came one after another, and he didn't have the leisure to argue with the other party. I didn't expect that the Ninetales would actually apply the nature change of fire attributes, and from this situation, it seems very skilled. Looking at the Ninetales in the distance, which opened its mouth wide and continuously spewed out blazing flames, burning the nearby ground dry and cracked, Toshiro had a headache. The other party tried to launch the tailed beast ball several times, but he, Chibimaru, and Sarutobi worked together to change the trajectory. Now they have changed their strategy and directly use fire to attack their side. It's really a headache. Water style. Damn, who repairs haha with the opponent's chakra, although it is just a simple transformation of chakra into flames. With the opponent's chakra volume, even the simplest ninjutsu will become incredibly powerful in the hands of the opponent. Facing this wave of fire that is higher than the other, Toshiro had to use this large-scale water-style ninjutsu performed by Kisame to protect himself and Chibimaru. Damn. Saruma, tell the Sandaime that if he is not ready, I will have to run away. While panting, Toshiro shouted at Saruma, then you and that old man will face the Ninetales together. A large water wave consumes too much chakra, and the little senjutsu chakra left in his body was consumed completely in this one shot. If the nine tails on the opposite side came with a few more large-scale fire seas, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand it. Even if he had a shadow clone to help gather senjutsu chakra, he couldn't outlast the nine tails. Here it comes. Before Toshiro could catch his breath, a huge fiery red claw of a beast rushed towards Toshiro's position on the battlefield covered by white steam. Clang! A huge sharp metal sound rang out, and Toshiro, who was close at hand, was shocked so much that his ears were bleeding faintly. One of the nine-tailed fox's sharp claws just grabbed the Reincarnated bang. Its nails, which were as sharp as metal weapons, collided with the Reincarnated bang, emitting clusters of bright sparks. This was not the end. Following this claw, the numerous tails of the nine-tailed fox were swung, and the wind pressure caused by the swinging blew away all the nearby steam and broke the branches of tall trees. Ape Demon, facing the close-range attack of the nine-tailed fox, let alone Toshiro, even Chiyobimaru under him could not resist for long, as the opponent's tail had too obvious an advantage. I don't know how the Six Paths Sage created this thing called the tailed beast. The power of each tail is amazing. Just when Toshiro had him transform into a diamond cage to protect himself and prepare to withstand the nine tails attack, the opponent's movements suddenly paused. What is this? Hiding in a square cage connected by a large number of Reincarnated rods, watching the Magatomas suddenly appear in the nine tails' eyes, slowly rotating, and then disappearing. Toshiro knew that the fourth Hokage's side should be almost over. At this moment, a red flare cut through the layers of water vapor and reflected its light into Toshiro's eyes. It's just in time. Chiyobimaru and Inma, we are just one last breath away. Get the nine tails to the third Hokage and we can call it a day. In order to guard against the nine tails on the opposite side, Toshiro also released another shadow clone and entered the Sage mode again. Chapter 299. How about I do it? What is this? The nine tails, which had just escaped from Obito's control, did not react for a moment and was stunned for a moment. However, he soon remembered Toshiro, Chiyobimaru, and Saramo under him. However, he did not care much. He knew all the methods used by the other party just now. Although he was controlled by the Uchiha who suddenly appeared, he still had his memories. He did not take it too seriously at all. As long as he got rid of these troubles on the opposite side, he could regain his long-lost freedom. How could he not be ecstatic? Thinking about his previous running in the sunset, and then comparing it with the prison in Kushina's body, this is really not the life a fox should live. No doubt, kill these bastards of Konoha. I am not too late. Just when Toshiro had just released another shadow clone and recovered to his vigorous state, ready to have a good fight with the nine tails, the third Hokage finally arrived. No, the timing is just right, seeing that the nine tails had regained consciousness and the Sandaime had arrived just in time. Toshiro said directly to Chiyobimaru under him, keep a distance from the nine tails. I need to prepare a ninjutsu. While directing Chiyobimaru under him, Toshiro did not forget to ask the Sandaime Hokage who had just arrived, how are the preparations over there? Have you brought the backup Jinchuriki? Knowing that the fourth Hokage was coming and this old man was coming so late, Toshiro planned to tease this old man and relieve some of his pressure. Backup Jinchuriki? Where did the backup Jinchuriki come from? Hearing Toshiro's words, the Sandaime realized at this time that he was only preparing to let the sealing squad seal the nine tails and had not prepared a new Jinchuriki at all. He was stunned by Toshiro's question. You know, if you only control the nine tails, if you don't have the bloodline limit like Kushina that can suppress the chakra of the tailed beasts to a certain extent, you can't suppress it for long. No backup Jinchuriki? This even Toshiro found it a little unbelievable. For such a large ninja village, there are not a lot of backup Jinchuriki, but at least one or two should be trained, right? Have you never considered the nine tails being freed and needing to be resealed? Seeing Toshiro's incredible look, the Sandaime felt very embarrassed. Konoha has been safe and sound since Mito-sama took over as Jinchuriki, and Kushina's growth over the years has far exceeded their expectations. So the top leaders have never considered replacing a Jinchuriki. Even when Kushina made a scene in the conference room last time, The top leaders didn't consider this. How could he conjure up a living Jinchuriki in such a hurry? How about, I try? Seeing the Sandame stunned on the spot, Toshiro couldn't help but make a joke with the Sandame Hokage. And by the way, see the other party's reaction. What a joke. Although he could hear that the other party was just teasing him, how could he accept such a statement? If the other party climbed up the pole, he would be in trouble. Let's control the Nine Tails first. Wait until the fourth Hokage comes before making a decision. I believe the fourth Hokage can solve this matter very well. In fact, one of the responsibilities of Uzumaki Naruto's birth is to become the next generation of the Nine Tails Jinchuriki when Kushina encounters an accident. Then let's do it. Seeing that the third Hokage directly used the fourth Hokage as a shield, Toshiro did not continue to joke with the other party. He raised his arms high, and with a flash of lightning rushing into the clouds, the dark clouds gathered in the sky of Konoha began to emit dazzling light, causing the ninjas and civilians below to raise their heads one by one, staring at the huge thunder beast in the clouds in amazement. Even the Nine Tails, who had never taken Toshiro and the others seriously, found that things were getting a little bad at this time. The whole fox curled up into a ball, wrapping itself tightly with its tail. This is the strongest defense it can use. Lightning release, Kirin with a deafening thunder. The ground where the nine-tailed fox was located, hundreds of meters in radius, turned into a ruin. There was only a reddish-orange fox lying on the ground, twitching constantly. It was not that it was injured so badly by the opponent's attack, but the opponent's attack was approaching, and those strong offensive lightning releases were fine. The key was the numbness that spread throughout its body with these lightning. It was really shocked and twitched. Chubianmaru, what are you waiting for? Seeing that the summoned beast under his feet was a little distracted because of his previous lightning release, Dong Shileng hurriedly reminded it. It was also because the nine-tailed fox was too hard before, using a lot of chakra to create huge seas of fire, and Dong Shileng had previously performed the Uchiha fire formation. This made the power of this Kirin so amazing. Understood after getting Dong Shiro's reminder, Chubimaru rushed to the side of the nine tails, grabbed the right foot of the big fox, and dragged it to the place designated by the third Hokage like a dead dog. You damn guy. And that bastard Uchiha, don't let me get out of trouble. Otherwise, I will definitely eat all of you guys. When has it ever been treated like this before? Even Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama, although they didn't treat it well, they were never so unbearable. How could it bear this? But at this time, no one paid attention to its threats. Hurry! Take your positions. Everyone, be at your respective formation nodes. Don't miss anything. Sandake. The Ninetales' recovery speed is very amazing. At this speed, the opponent will be able to recover in a few minutes. Through the Sharingan, observing the changes on the Ninetales side, and looking at the panicked members of the Sealing Squad below, Toshiro had to remind the Sandake that if this dragged on, something might happen to the Ninetales. These people in the Sealing Squad were used to enjoying a good life, and they were all very nervous when facing the momentum of the Ninetales. Toshiro needs Chubimaru to continue to suppress the Ninetales, otherwise, these guys might cause trouble. Seeing that his Sealing Squad was so useless, the Sandake was speechless and could only hope that Toshiro's summoned beast could continue to suppress the Ninetales. Chapter 300, Burning Heart. The bright moon disappeared behind the heavy dark clouds, and the cold night wind whistled and whistled in the valleys, plains, forests in Konoha. Several large dark and heavy clouds seemed to be flowing and floating along the Hokai rock behind Konoha. The sparse moon shadows and dim stars seemed to be covered with a layer of black gauze, looming. Sir, the sealing team is ready. Please also ask Toshiro, the Jonin, to suppress the Ninetales for a while, and the sealing formation will start soon. Busy and busy. The guys in the sealing team finally looked a little bit better. Not only Toshiro, but even the third Hokage felt relieved. Of course, this seal does not seal the Ninetales directly into the human body. How can it be done without a human pillar? It is just to temporarily suppress the Ninetales' ability to move. You guys start. Toshiro and I will cooperate with you. Yes. Without much hesitation, The ceiling ninja who came to Chiubimaru to report the situation disappeared on the spot. Ready. Vishnu seal, activate. As the ceiling ninja left, a huge ceiling array lit up under the nine tails. Oh, it turned out to be the Vishnu ceiling array. Use this to suppress the nine tails. With the efforts of those ceiling squad members, it should be no problem to suppress it for 40 to 50 minutes. With such a long buffer, I think the fourth Hokage should have no problem. It seems that these ceiling squad members are still quite capable. Looking at the black spells that appeared out of thin air under the feet of the ceiling squad members surrounding the nine tails, they began to meander and swim, connecting into a whole, forming a fixed formation, and slowly climbed onto the nine tails body. Toshiro had to admit that although the members of the ceiling team had poor psychological quality and needed a lot of people to suppress the nine tails, they were still somewhat effective. Is it okay for us to stay here? Looking at the black spell that had spread to Chiubimaru's feet, Toshiro raised his eyebrows and looked at the Sandaime Hokage next to him. In order to better suppress the nine tails, Chiubimaru now sat on the nine tails. If he accidentally dragged himself and others into the ceiling, it would be a big trouble. Don't worry, these ceiling spells are controlled by the ceiling team and will only spread along the body of the nine tails. Besides, I am still with you, right? Seeing that Toshiro seemed to not understand the tricks, the relaxed Sandaime also acted as a commentator and explained the principle of this sealing technique to Toshiro. But before he finished speaking, the black spells seemed to be blocked by something and paused. After a while of preparation, they rushed towards Chiubimaru and Toshiro on Chiubimaru. Even the Sandaime Hokage was their target. This, being slapped in the face in public, the Sandaime felt a little embarrassed and quickly scolded. What are you doing? How could such a mistake happen? He didn't think much about it and just thought it was a mistake made by his subordinates. However, the ones who responded to him were not the frightened subordinates, but two figures rushing towards them. Kill. Just when those black spells wrapped up the Sandaime Hokage and Toshiro, two figures wearing Anbu uniforms and masks, each holding a cold and shining blade, rushed towards them. Third generation, be careful, there is an assassin. Such a sudden change. The guards of the Sandaime, the ninjas who intercepted the nine tails, and the members of the ceiling squad were all stunned at this time. Bang! There was a loud explosion, followed by a huge white smoke, which enveloped the entire scene, making it impossible for people outside to see what was happening. Go and protect the Sandaime. The ceiling squad. What are you bastards doing? Are you planning a rebellion? And these Anbu, they can't be trusted either. It's them who are behind this. With this puff of white smoke, the entire scene suddenly fell into chaos, especially seeing the abnormality of the ceiling squad, and the two Anbu who just assassinated the Sandaime and Toshiro. The ninjas present were all at a loss. Did it succeed? Less than a kilometer away from the ceiling squad, a figure leaning on a cane stood quietly here, squinting one small eye, looking at the situation in the smoke. Danzo-sama, is it really okay for us to do this? The subordinates who followed him looked at the white smoke that blocked their vision, then looked at Danzo beside him, and asked with a trembling voice, HMPH, Namike's Minato, that brat is not qualified to be the Hokage at all. Only me, only I can lead Konoha to become the strongest ninja village in the ninja world. After answering his subordinate's question, a voice rang in Danzo's heart. Hiruzen, don't blame me, blame you for being too weak. Without you, Konoha will only become stronger under my leadership. Just now, after the Sandaime rejected his suggestion to take the opportunity to kill Toshiro, he did not give up his plan because of the Sandaime's rejection, but secretly arranged for the members of the sealing team to do something when sealing the nine tails. But when he was about to take action, looking at Sarutobi Hiruzen standing next to Toshiro, a bold idea involuntarily grew in his heart. If he killed Toshiro and killed the Sandaime Hokage at the same time, and then put the blame on the fourth Hokage, then he could. Because of the Nine Tails rampage, the fourth Hokage's position was already somewhat unstable. If he had anything to do with the death of the Sandaime Hokage, it would be easy for him to remove him from the position of Hokage. Without the obstruction of the Sandaime and the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, there would be only a young fourth Hokage, plus a Bohemian Jiraiya, how could they be his opponents? As for Orochimaru, that guy had shifted his attention to ninjutsu and eternal life because the Sandaime Hokage chose Minato Namikaze, so he had a lot of leverage in his hands, not to mention the Konoha princess who suffered from hemophobia. When Danzo thought that the throne of Hokage was waving to him, he could no longer hold back his restless and fiery heart, and immediately changed his plan, asking his men to kill the Sandaime together. Now he just had to wait for the outcome of the matter. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.